right, there we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that means it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my co-host Tom. What's up, Tom?
Hello, friends.
Very good to see you, Tom. This is our first try at yet another new setup. Because why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't I have to try something new right now? Of course I would. And yes, for those of you who know, I know that the title is wrong at the moment. I'm going to fix it here in a second. Don't worry. For whatever reason, it won't let me actually start with the right title name, even though I change it every time. It always uses what's in the last one. I don't know why this happens. Such is life. But anyway, while I'm messing
Amazing.
around with this stuff, let's go over to Tom for the news.
Yeah, news. We have a rumor engine. Let me share that up for us. An exciting rumor engine, not one that I think we want to miss. Here we go. Share screen. Boom. Screen sharing. Rumor engine. What do you think, Vince? What do you think it is?
Why would you throw it back to me when you know I'm in the middle of trying to fix this? You're a terrible person, Tom. I want you to know that.
Yeah, I am. It's okay.
But no, the answer is it looks like a chaos thing, right? I mean, it's a dead Stormcast head. They seem like the kind that would have it. So either, but it also looks like a leg and a boot with a heavy cloak around it, right?
Yep.
Which there you go. By the way, everybody. Now the name should be correct. So hopefully that looks right now.
Yep.
But the reality is that it just feels like our eventual Slaves to Darkness thing, which we have some other news about. But that's what it really feels like to me. So it feels like the kind of thing that they would have on their waist, right?
Maybe. Or this is another event-based Stormcast release.
Okay. Oh, is this like where he's? Is this like where he's retrieving the helmet of his fallen brother? Is that what it is?
I mean, that's an idea. Although you see the strap on the top of the liberator, or not the liberator, the sequitur headplate.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
And so the other alternative would be that he has taken so he has his helmet on his belt, and you see the scar on the face, right?
Yes, where something has clearly cracked the helmet across there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's in some pose, and he has his helmet strapped to his waist. Now, the fact that it's jagged along the base of the helmet militates against this interpretation, but I'm choosing to believe that that's what this is.
No, I like your idea. Let's build on this. You're right, Tom. You're absolutely right. This is another Stormcast release. But it's like a Stormcast where his helmet has been cracked and is now worthless, and he's carrying it. He's just it's going to be like the rugged, lost Stormcast. They're still Stormcasts, they're still good guys, right? But it's like a chamber that's been out for too long. Yeah?
Right. And they just won't die because they're that hard.
Yeah. Yep, there you go. Also, Martin in the comments said it's a Liberator helmet, not a Sequitur helmet.
Is it? I don't know.
The point is, it's some Stormcast helmet. So yes, I'm back in your play here, Tom. It's not Chaos. This is a Stormcast guy. His helmet is shattered and worthless. He's going to have a long, shaggy beard because these are some that are separated. And in fact, that's what they've been pointing at with the comics the whole time. Yeah, I don't know if have you been following the role model comics?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, they ran into those Stormcast that couldn't lightning back, right? Yeah?
Right. Yep.
Exactly. That's all just the comic has been revealing the truth of it all for the eventual next Stormcast release. Boom, we cracked the code.
Maybe it's a group that's been lost in the warp, and they've been afraid if they die, they'll be lost forever.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's not evil Stormcast. These are still good guys, right?
Right.
They're not Deathcast, they're not Chaoscast, they're not anything like that. They are Stormcast. They are fighting for Sigmar. They've just lost their ability to go home. And so they're basically, they all look like Tom Hanks from that movie where he was talking to the volleyball. Castaway.
Castaway.
Yes.
Sure.
They're all like that. In fact, that's the name of the chamber. Castaway.
Castaway. Stormcastaway.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I'm down. I think we got something here.
Absolutely. I think we've nailed it. We finally figured it out. We have cracked the code on this one.
I don't know. We can dream. That'd be fun, right?
That would be cool. That'd be super sweet.
So, anyways, that's the first one. This next one is we had a Beast Grave like Hammer Hall, like Chronicles of a Hammer Hall, like image, article, advertisement thing. If you look at how marketing normally works, normally they release those like normally about a month out, anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks out.
Right. Sure.
Which might suggest that Beast Grave is actually not October, like some people like we've had the prior releases.
Well, I have a theory on that.
Okay, go ahead.
So, as we'll discuss later, the delay of the Sylvaneth book pushed out all the other books by probably about a month, right? So everything is now backed up, which created a hole in the schedule, in the release schedule, right?
Yep.
The thing
so
that
you're thinking they bumped up Beast Grave?
Exactly, because of the nature of printing on this stuff, they have to have this ready to go so far in advance, right?
Yeah.
Like all of this stuff for that season has to be ready way in advance. So they were like, okay, well, we'll just pull that one forward a month, start the new season a month early, and then we don't have the hole in our release schedule anymore. Which means, by the way, that if we're ever going to get our like Kurnothi Wanderers type release, right? If that ever feeds back into being a thing, it's going to be a longer distance of time in between the Kurnothi Warband and the Kurnothi Army release, which I'm still sticking behind. Like, I think that absolutely, I've thought about this more since last week, and I think we are absolutely, like, look, think of it from the sculptor's point of view, right? Which we know does a lot of the decision making, right?
Right.
And they resculpted like new models infused with this like 80s aesthetic of these, punk hair metal things. You think they stopped at like those 4 models? They were like, nah, this is good. This satisfied us. No need to build on this incredibly awesome aesthetic that calls back to our own history while bringing it to a new generation and speaking to the very heart of the Warhammer experience. I mean, we got 4 models. Let's call it a day. No. They knocked out a whole army. Called shot.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what does it for them, that's fine. I'm not in.
You're anti-in? Oh no, dude, I'm all about it. More satyrs and centaurs and crap like that. There's so much like potential weird fantasy creature crap that's never gotten into Warhammer, right?
Sure. No, I agree with that. I'm not a big fan of the aesthetic. So
no, it's fair enough. I mean, it either hits you or it doesn't, right? Like that's the thing about those aesthetics. It's a deeply personal thing. But for me, it does herald back to things I liked. I just think the models look unbelievably doofy now. Like I don't have any love for the early '90s War Dancers that I still have, just because they look so skinny and weird, and they're all like, they look like little T-Rex aliens. Their bodies have strange, early '90s proportions. But I think a resculpt on that could be great. Yeah. I'm not saying I'd buy the army, but I like it.
Hey Vince, do you have you got a tea kettle going on in the background?
No, I saw somebody mention it. I don't.
Whenever you talk, I hear the tea kettle like whistle.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
It's amazing. It's getting angry, as Manzak said. Yes, it is. Yeah, I hear it. There you go. I hear it. Anyways, okay, moving on. So that's that. We got some really interesting other rumors that leaked out. Here's the more interesting stuff. So more information on the ogres. By the way, we have not heard anything on Cities of Sigmar and on the orc, the wog, the great wog, the war tribes of whatever it's called, war clans, the Orc war clans. There we go. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I still think that we're probably a couple weeks out, maybe the end of August is what I'm guessing. That's my vote. But we haven't really heard anything new on those. But what we have heard is some stuff on the forthcoming Ogre/Death faction. So for the Ogres, we've heard that all the resin models are going to be gone. All the resin stuff gone. The Tyrant and the Butcher are going to get a replacement. We've already seen the Tyrant replacement. For the Butcher replacement, it's going to actually lose the Cauldron, so it'll just be like a Butcher. And the Cauldron that was on him and the Cauldron effect is going to get rolled into a terrain piece, which is, you guessed it, a big pile of meat with a cauldron in the center. My barbecue ogre terrain piece is happening. The Great Barbecue. And we'll also see the reuniting of the ogres BCR with these other ogres, which will be exciting. The one decapitated head that we saw previously, that rumor engine is, I believe, in the, I think they said the terrain piece is what was leaked. For the endless spells that are coming, it's the type of things that you'd expect. You have the maw in the ground. Remember how we talked about how like a maw, it would be like low-hanging fruit for the train, or not for the terrain piece, for the endless spell. We're going to get that. We're going to get an Everwinter Storm type thing that's going to float around. And we're going to get a big piece of floating meat. So there you go, folks. If you ever wanted to have a spell where you put a pork chop on the table, you can get that with ogres now. They're saying that the release for this is going to be late October with the new Death faction, so that both will drop around the same time. And originally it was going to be in September, but with the Sylvaneth being pushed back, everything got pushed back a month. So that's the stuff on ogres. What do you think about it, Vince?
Yeah, it's good. I don't know. Hopefully, I didn't get super quiet, and hopefully, my whistle is stopping.
You were quieter, and the whistling is very subtle now.
Okay, well, like, keep in mind, folks, I'm on a laptop here and have one screen, and I'm sharing that screen. So if you really want me to start screwing around with my sound, you're all just going to watch me screw around with my sound on screen, okay? Because that's how this works now.
It's amazing.
So, yes, he said I'm super quiet. I'll see what I can do. I have what I have. So at any rate, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. That's exactly what we hoped. I like the idea of rolling them together, but keeping them separate. Do it just like the War Clans, and we'll call it a day. Right? There you go.
Yeah, indeed. And with that, we're also going to get a Death faction, ironically, somewhat related to the Ogres. The Death faction is going to be a new skeleton faction. It will have a Mongolian-ish aesthetic. So it will have a... I don't want to say this. Another non-European aesthetic. So it is Tomb Kings-ish in the sense that it's non-European. It's going to have both foot and mounted skeletal archers. There's a new skeleton kit coming with that. As I said, we're going to have, interestingly, ogre skeleton infantry. So there's going to be a bunch of like ogres on foot that are skeletons in the army. That's going to be like part of the heart of the Death Army. And what the kind of in the lore, what we're going to find out is that the ogres gave their dead to this force for peace. I'm assuming that they stripped all the meat off of them and just gave the Death faction their bones. But that pact of bones has now come to an end. So, yeah, it's an interesting kind of attempt of revitalization on the ogre armies. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I dig it. All right, tell me if this is louder, folks, or if there's still a whistle or whatever. I'm trying my best here to mess with stuff while we're live. And by the way, I can hear Tom, and I can't hear a whistle, so it's very hard to diagnose something I can't hear. But yeah, I dig it. Bringing back that kind of aesthetic. I'm hoping that they actually don't serve Nagash in the end, that this is sort of its own thing out there somewhere operating. I think would be totally awesome. Okay. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We'll see is my answer. Yeah, we'll see. I actually hope that this is the quote Tomb King's army that we were told where it's coming.
Right.
So that like if it is this Mongolian aesthetic and I'm just not really a fan, I just end up doing Tomb King's models instead because I have them and I do my new Lumni army. So, yeah, I'm actually hoping that this ends up filling that gap or that hole, and then lets me do my own thing. I think that would be neat.
Sure. All right, let's try that. We'll see if that's louder now. I played with something else, which you all saw. So there you go.
And then the other thing that we found out, interestingly enough, is that the final battle tome of the year will be Tzeentch.
Yes. Which,
That's
if you
right,
read
folks.
that recent short story, you knew. Because, like, by the way, I would highly recommend everybody read that new Forbidden Power short story. It's crazy and really shows, like, the madness of Tzeentch and stuff. Like, vultures circling, bleeding bronze out of their eyes and stuff. Like, it was cool. So, yeah, I mean, it was all clearly Tzeentchy. He's like, there were pools of blood, and chaos spilled forth from them, and weird creatures made of pink and green madness spilled forth from the blood of my fallen friends, and stuff like that. So yeah, as soon as you read that, you're like, okay, Tzeentch is in the house.
Either Dali is a chaos god, or it's Tzeentch.
Sure.
But with that, the Slave to Darkness has been pushed off till next year in the reshuffling.
Yep, we got to wait even longer for our Kaon, the Lord of the Apocalypse, to be useful again, but that's all right. I'm kind of excited about it because I have a feeling I'm really going to like that army and want to do stuff related to it. So this frees up some time in my schedule.
Sorry, Archaon, you're still neg 1 for a bit.
Yeah, or whatever. I don't care if his sword stays neg 1. Just make it so, like, anything he hits, he'd make his effect trigger on, like, yeah, like on 4s. Yeah, he just whacks things, just boom, kills enemy heroes on 4+. Yeah.
I mean, maybe, or what I would say is just make it so that enemies struck by the sword don't get saves.
Sure. The old Obsidian Blade. Yeah.
Let's just create a new ability and play in a new space. Let's do some new mechanics. No saves.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like Rend is just special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a little star, or you don't even have to do a star. You put dash like no rend, and then you just have an ability attached to the blade. Like Slayer of Kings, enemies struck by this blade may not make saves against its damage. If you roll 2/6, it's auto kill. You just add, yeah.
Yep. Easy enough.
Yep. And make it actually scary again. It'll be delightful. Yeah, I'm loud. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. If we're hitting normal's what I'm going for. If I can achieve close to normal on this new setup, like, again, this is like a new computer and a completely new setup, and the first week we're doing it. So thanks, everybody, for coming along with us on this fun journey as YouTube continues to screw my life up.
Yeah, for the audience who were concerned about our IT issues last week, Vince's solution was to just buy a new computer.
That is correct.
That's how much he loves you.
I was standing in the store, literally not sure whether or not I was going to spend the money, and my wife is like, "I thought you had a show to do Wednesday," and then she gave me like a check. She gave me one of those, came at me like that, and I was like, "All right, you're right. Let's do this."
Yeah, that's delightful. I'll have to send Kathy a note thanking her.
Absolutely. What we're going to talk about this week, since we didn't mention it earlier, our topic this week is going to be Tom and I's proposed additions to the factions, and I'll talk when we get there. I'll talk about why I want to talk about this. Yeah.
Yep. And okay, so two final pieces of information. I found out this week, another rumor that leaked out, is that from this point on, all limited release products, collector's edition, stuff made to order, all of that stuff. There's a bunch of like special icons associated with the products, not the web store only icon, but the other icons. Whenever those show up on things, and I believe it actually also includes last chance to buy as well. Discounts will no longer be available to secondary retailers. And so like if you were getting like discounts on like limited edition books and stuff like that, GW apparently has shut that down with the secondary retailers. And so like a lot of product that was limited release will no longer be discounted.
Gotcha.
Such that like the secondary retailers themselves have to pay full price to acquire it. So it's not like there will be options, is what I would say.
All right, I'm going to try this instead. People tell me if this sounds better. I'm going to try the other microphone I have access to. I kept the sound going out to my headset, but put the sound in through the laptop. We'll see if that's better. We're gonna try stuff here, folks. As far as like no more limited edition pricing, discount pricing, I don't care. I'll still buy the limited edition tomes for the armies that I really love, because the reality is like that Skaven and that Slaanesh limited edition tome, those are armies I've owned for more than a decade, 20 years in one case, right? And like I bought it because I truly and deeply love that army. And like I wanted something special to like commemorate that. It's the same reason you buy like a nice frame for a picture of your family or something that you really love, or like your parents that passed away or something. Like there's an emotional attachment to it, so I'm willing to spend the money. And that like 10 or 20% discount or whatever you got, okay, who cares?
This would not include the limited release boxes. This is specifically like the special edition items. And we experienced some of this with like the anniversary items and stuff like that, I think. But I think that it'll just become like, I say all this to say, I don't know exactly what items this will and won't include. It's just be prepared if you reach out to Element Games or you reach out to some secondary retailer and you're not able to get a discount on it anymore.
Sure.
Like this is coming down the pipeline in some manner. Yeah.
Cool. Well, great. I mean, those things are always optional. You know what I mean? So as long as I keep having the ability to get discounts on the main product, like I can make a decision as a consumer whether or not I want to spend the extra chunk of change. And apparently this sound is better, so that's good. Yay! We figured something out.
And then the final piece of news this week is that we had the Warcry Varenscribe app come out for army building.
Yep.
So Vince, what are your thoughts on that?
I love it. It's really good. Like there's a couple things I wish it did a little better, but like for right now, for sort of V1.0, as it were, it's great.
Yeah.
Very useful. We've already got, I played a game this last weekend. I'll talk about it a little bit briefly in hobby time, but we're already plotting out our Warcry narrative campaign. Like that was already agreed. We were kind of trying to divide up forces and stuff. We're going to do like one sample game first, just to kind of get everybody, in and understanding it. And then we'll build our real war bands and start the campaign.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. That'll be sweet. So there we go. That's the news.
Cool. All right, man. Well, let's do some pick of the week then, Tom. What would you like to share with everybody?
Yeah, I actually have 2 picks of the week this week.
Uh-oh.
The first, I want to give a shout out to AOS Shorts for pointing this out to me. It's an article on, I think it's Peter Atkinson's blog, which is Plastic Crack or Crake. It's spelled weirdly, but let me share the image of this. It was a wonderfully well-assembled article called "The Great Call of Great Order Call of 2019," and he just kind of walks through the logic of reflecting on the call in a very kind of matter of fact manner. And it was just a very well thought out, well assembled article, which provided some reflections and some thoughts for the community on this type of activity, as GW will have to do, and at the same time kind of calling them to account for the lack of communication, which ultimately is kind of the heart of some of the problems. And so I would highly recommend it. It represents my position and where I've kind of been on the issue very well. That's what I would say. So, and it was a very thoughtful piece. Nice. So that's the first one. The second one, I'm going to give a shout out to one of the individuals of my community member or community here in Lexington, Chris Rowe. Chris did his Warcry birds as murder chickens.
Yes. Oh my god, I love them. They're little angry chickens.
In very Link Zelda-like fashion. There's a bunch of murder chickens, and they're out to get you. And so I love it.
Oh, that's
and
great.
I'm going. And he did a great job. And he gave, like, I had asked him about what his paint scheme was, and he did it up real quick with contrast paints and some other stuff, and they look great. And so I am like, this is what I'm doing for my birds, my murder chickens. There will be murder chickens out for our groups on Warcry. It's so adorable. I saw this and immediately thought of your Barnyard Busters, Vince.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's fantastic. We can't all steal it though. That's the problem. I mean, this is such a good idea.
We can. And by the way, Chris, great job.
Yeah, this is A+ work. I love it. I love that he's got the Savage Orc that looks like he's running away too. That's wonderful.
Yep, there you go. Murder chickens on the loose.
Excellent.
So that was my honorable mention.
Nice. My pick of the week, I want to direct everybody to our buddies over at the Mortal Realms, as he's doing. They're doing some videos around painting terrain, and specifically, he did one quite recently, like today, basically, around painting like worn and weathered wood. And I actually really like the effect he got, because he gets a really nice old, worn, gray-looking wood, which is like exactly what I'd sort of think the wood at the Varen Spire or these kinds of battlegrounds would look like. So it's not like rich, varnished lumber or whatever.
Yeah.
It looks like that old wood that isn't really treated, that's been sitting out, being walked on and used for like way too long in nature. So I'm going to link that video, because I think it's a pretty simple process. Like, it's nothing crazy complicated, but he achieves absolutely stellar looking results. And I know there's going to be a lot of people who all of a sudden have a bunch of Warcry terrain to paint. So, there you go. There's a good way to do it.
Yeah, speaking of that, my hobby time this week, I painted Warcry terrain.
Oh, are you doing the transitions now, Tom? You're doing the segues now?
No, I just stole your job. Look at that. I'm a pro now, folks.
5 years in, you're starting to segue. All right, yeah, go. So you're working on your Warcry terrain, huh?
Yeah, I was actually just looking over at it as you're talking. Like, all of my stonework is done. All of my like primary stonework. I have some secondary like marble-ish stonework that I'm going to do on like the top flat spaces. But all of that is done and dry brushed like 100 times and washed 100 different ways. And then I've got my wood. Like, I did that with my wood, where I did I did all the coats, like all the dry brushing and all that for like the marble. I did on the wood as well. And then I actually used the Sylvan or the Wildwood contrast paint over top.
Oh yeah, sure.
And it it grabbed all the cracks, and then all the highlights and everything that was really light from the marble, like just popped right through all on the wood. And so I'm gonna add like another layer of dry brushing probably on the wood to like make it a little bit more grayish, and like worn lumber. But that's all pretty much done at this point, which I'm super excited about. So I basically only have like the metal and the bone to do on the terrain, and then it'll be all done for me.
Nice.
So
I have not even started building mine yet. It's sitting there behind me. There's a big giant box of like that terrain plus all the other terrain I'm just going to hammer together to make my Warcry terrain. Instead, this week, you might be asking yourself, Vince, is that stupid display board done yet? That thing that is hung over your head like so much of a sword of Damocles? And the answer is no, but for good reason. It's just because it takes two-part epoxy like water resin a long time to dry. It takes it an especially long time to dry when you don't properly seal one of the sides and then do a massive pour and it leaks out one side and sticks your entire board to the table you were doing it on. So this will be a fun lesson learned in the video I'm recording for it, where I show you how not to do something like a dum-dum. A whole side of it leaked out and then resined my board to the table. Like, I could pick up the shelf and flip it around and it would stick perfectly. It didn't move. I had to get in there and like pry it off, like just like with a crowbar, and then all the resin peels right off because it doesn't actually stick to foam very well. Then I had to reseal and re-pour that side, so it's fine. It took a while.
I am so sorry. I mean, it's kind of funny.
It is
but
funny.
I'm so sorry. I look forward to that hobby cheating video.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. And like, I'm not going to cover this up. Like in the video, I'll be like, so this is how you don't do this. And like, I was describing to my wife what I was going through, and she's like, well, why did you leave the table? Why did you leave your board you were doing on the table directly? Why didn't you like have it propped up some amount so that way if something leaked out the bottom, it wouldn't have stuck to the board? And I was like, because I'm a moron. Like, yes, that's exactly correct. Because I got going too fast and didn't think, and that's never a good
I didn't
thing.
think that this would happen.
Oh, I should have known it would happen. But I mean, one side was perfect, didn't leak at all, so
Sure.
I can't complain. And then I did a repour and resealed everything properly, and it didn't leak at all. So now it's just drying, and then basically once I get back, I've got maybe an hour left of just some final little like touch-ups and cleanups, paint the edge, and good to go. But that's not actually what I was working on this week. What I was actually working on this week, because obviously that was just pouring water and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm actually working on this week is the new King of Ecstasy, which actually releases tomorrow from Creature Caster. I won't have him ready tomorrow because I'm traveling right now, obviously. So my hobby time is interrupted this week. But I am super happy with him and his progress. He is a very, very, very busy model, as they're prone to do with a lot of those large demons.
Yeah.
But he should be done. I'm pretty sure I can finish him up this weekend. So he's got some work left, but he'll probably be done this weekend. So
That's exciting.
So that and the board will both be done, and then it's time to turn to all the other 100 things that have been building up behind me. So,
yeah, my terrain was a great distraction from my Nighthaunt army that still is not being finished primed. Really dragging my feet on how I want to do those.
okay, all right. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, we'll see.
Sure. Also, on a side note to all that, I'm also doing like a hard cleanse right now where I'm not drinking any caffeine at all. So I've stopped completely drinking caffeine, which if you know about how much caffeine I drink, it is amazed that I'm amazed I'm still conscious. I feel like Archer with like, well, if I stop drinking, I'm afraid the cumulative hangover would kill me. So I'm into that. So that's going well. Good times all around. It's been a heck of an interesting week. Let me say that. A lot of fun.
Well, that might explain you mistaping one of the sides. Just weren't all there.
It was before that. No, I did that when I was still on the juice. It just wasn't paying attention.
Wow.
So there you go. I'm not going to stay off of caffeine forever. I'm just intermittent. And then I'll go back to drinking it in a more controlled fashion. It's one of those things where I was probably going a little too far. You know, you get to that place, you're like, this seems like too much. I'm going to die. So you got to do things,
I mean,
you know?
I get it.
Yeah. So sometimes you got to take the right steps for your health. You know, be healthy out there. Stay hydrated, folks.
I'm doing something similar this week. I've just stepped onto a more controlled diet.
There you go. Getting healthy. Got to stay alive. Yeah. I got more figs to paint. I can't die soon. No, I'm drinking this Gatorade Zero right now. That's my plan for this moment. I've been trying a couple different.
Sounds terrible.
Well, I've been drinking. It's actually pretty good. I've been drinking a couple different like flavored waters to see what I like. Because I don't just want to drink regular water. Regular water is kind of like boring. But this is fine.
True.
Anyway, so let's talk about some additions we'd like to see. So let me sort of set this up and talk about what it is.
Yep.
Tonight I want to talk about how Tom and I would expand the existing factions, and this is going to be, pure wish listing, tinfoil hatting type of exercise.
Yeah, there's no actual data behind any of this. There are no leaks. Do not read too deeply into what's going on. This is pure unadulterated speculation.
Right. However, last time we did something like this, 2 years ago or whatever, we called the cities of Sigmar Defenders of the Realm, and then that became real. So at this point, I'm just assuming we have the power to, like the secret, we can just make this manifest.
Speak things into reality. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I think we can do that. I agree.
Yeah. So this is our chance to this is our chance to make those things real. And there's a couple things that triggered this thought in my mind. So if anybody hasn't watched the most recent episode of Stormcast,
sure.
where he interviewed what's her name, Catherine, I guess, the one of the artists. It was a really good interview. I apologize, I just couldn't think of her name off the top of my head. And I like a lot of her work she's done. There was sort of a throwaway comment that like the art that the artists do can help inform the sculptors if they ever return. He gave the example of she had done a lot of the Caradhran Overlord art. Okay.
Yeah.
And she gave the example of like, well, if the sculptors returned to the Caradhran Overlords and wanted to add to that force, they could draw on your art for additional ideas. And I was like, that's an interesting thing. And then I read that short story whenever it was published, like Monday or whenever it came out.
Right.
And in there, it really, like, it's very Tzeentch-y, but it seems like they're describing units that don't currently exist. Now, maybe that's something, maybe that's nothing. You know what I mean? Whoever knows with stuff like that, right?
Yep.
I was totally sure on the Slaanesh thing because of the same short story. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you never fool me again.
You're saying regarding the Leather Daddies?
Correct. That's exactly right. Yeah. And so, like, those kind of two thoughts were pinging around in my brain, along with the realization from these rumors that we've got this most recent crop that, basically we're at the end of the road here for the update of old factions, right? Arguably, after we get the Slaves to Darkness book, we need what, like a Seraphon book, maybe?
Yep.
And that's still kind of technically an update. Like, the Slaves to Darkness is like the last of the of the existing factions that have nothing. Seraphon needs like a real book. And real rules. But then the question is going to become, that was the other thing they mentioned.
Darkling Covens, maybe. Depending on how you consider them rolling into the cities.
Sure, depending on how they roll into cities or what they become of Malarians. And like, we know we've got other new armies, right? So that's not what I'm talking about.
Sure.
And this came up in one of those episodes of Stormcast as well, where he kind of chuckled as like, or one of the interviews, something people were like, well, what are you going to do when you run out of, refreshing all the codices? And it's like, well, we're going to make new stuff, right? Like, duh.
Right.
And not be constrained to only reprint the same stuff over and over again.
Right. They're just tired of the tension of what they are having to probably navigate a tension between like old and new releases. And they're like, we just want to release cool, awesome things, not old stuff.
Yeah. So like, but it can't be all new armies, right? Because they want to release now at sort of a faster clip, right? We're in a world where they can't do all new armies at the same pace we get releases now. They just can't do it.
Sure.
But what they can do is, as we've seen, like, they could supplement and re-release, right?
Yeah.
So kind of what they'll probably end up doing with probably ultimately what Maw Tribes will end up being, right? Where it'll be like a new Butcher, a new Tyrant. Maybe that's it. Right, maybe a couple other new figures, and then it's just kind of the old stuff re-released and expanded.
Right, like Nurgle needs this. Like, even though they were technically at the front end of this, like, it needs a refresh.
Sure, and the reality is there's a lot of different factions you could do this with. Over time, they're all going to need it, right? Like, on a long enough timeline, this is the future. My hope is that actually we kind of stop really changing editions in the hard sense of how we used to think about it. And we get more of a transition like AOS 1 to AOS 2. You see what I'm saying? Like it's a different type. Like, I'm not going to argue that's not an edition change. Whatever. My concern's not the semantics, right?
Right.
But my point is, like, that was more of a soft change. Like, anybody who played like 3rd edition D&D and then went to like 4th edition D&D knows that that's a much more radical edition change, right?
Right. No, this was like a 3 to 3.5.
Right. And so I kind of hope we sustain that kind of thing as long as we can. But that then leaves the question of, okay, if we're going to re-release these factions, we're going to get new stuff for them as well, right?
Right.
So what's that new stuff look like? So that's what we're going to talk about today. All those kind of little pieces congealed in my mind to realize this could start as early as 2020, right? Like, next year we could start looking at that stuff, and certainly in 2021.
Like, you're saying next year we could see things for Nurgle, Daughters of Cain,
or whatever. right? You know, like it could be, yes, sure, why not? Amongst other things, right?
Yep. Yep.
Where you could start to see this stuff, like a refreshed book plus maybe a couple new kits, right, or something like that. So if we were going to add,
Carotid Overlords is
yeah,
another
sure,
one.
KO is absolutely going to get this treatment, right?
Well, no, but to return, you said who needs new books? Seraphon. KO is actually is on an old book cycle. It does not have a currently updated book for second edition. Like they are on the
Fair
old.
enough. I was still thinking of them as being okay as having that book, but I don't
I
mean
mean,
like,
they're an old label book.
yeah, sure. Okay, so the point is that sure. So we're going to redo KO because that's one of the ones I mentioned, right? So the
Right.
question is, if we're redoing these factions,
Yep.
what gets changed, added, etc., right?
Sure.
Both rules, new figs, whatever. So I thought we'd just kind of move through the factions and talk about where we hope, given all the learnings they have,
Yep.
where should they go with them? Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we're doing. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about. I'm not going to touch on the stuff. We're not going to do the stuff that already has books we know is coming, like ogres and BCR being rolled into Maw tribes. You know what I mean? Like they're going to get whatever they get. You know.
Right.
I think we've pretty much seen what they're going to get, or touch slaves to darkness, or this new death faction, or stuff like that. So.
Yep.
All right.
We're not doing new. We're doing old refreshed.
Yeah. So here, and some of these, the answer, by the way, can be they don't need anything. So I'm going to kind of go through this in kind of pseudo alphabetical order, because why not, rather than going by Grand Alliance or something. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So first off, let's start off with the Beasts of Chaos. Right. So
Okay.
This is one of our more recent-ish releases. What would you hope to see if they refresh Beasts of Chaos at some point in the future? Where are opportunities for beasts?
That's low hanging fruit. Pestigore and Slongor. Moving in, so we have like very clear Zangor,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Moving more robustly into the like other god marked models.
Okay.
Like that seems like that's low hanging fruit of development. And I could see, and maybe like if Nurgle's getting updated soon, right?
Yep.
Then you save the Pestigore for the Nurgle update,
Oh, okay, sure. Kind of a twofer there.
right? And since we just had Slaanesh, like with the Beast of Chaos update, you do Slongor and Cornigor, right?
Yep.
And then so those are the new stuff. You rewrite all the bad monster scrolls, like the Jabber Slide and all that stuff that nobody wields.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, you hit the thing that I was going to touch on, which is like, I want better monsters, right? And this kind of goes to like the thing we still haven't nailed. I feel like they still don't have the exact position of like non-hero monsters in the game well nailed down. And I feel like the Beasts of Chaos, who have basically the best access in the game to the monsters of Chaos, right? To these classic Chaos monsters. Like, they can ally into anything, but...
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
It's really belongs in the Beast of Chaos. And
Right.
I would really like to see those scrolls get refreshed, be truly interesting and deadly. Stuff like the Chimera, things like the Gorgon and the Cygor and stuff like that actually be like frightening, right? Like the kind of things that are worth their weight. Because I don't just want to see them get cheaper. I would like to pay like 300 points for a Chimera and have that be worth it.
Sure.
You understand what I mean? Like,
I do.
yeah, and like they need to be quite destructive and or tough and or both to punch at that weight. Because without a hero, like the addition of some tiny dude sitting on top, or of the hero keyword, because it is a big sentient monster, like a Vermin Lord or something, right? Just makes a huge difference when all of a sudden they start like using command abilities, being a hero to capture, capturing spell or casting spells, like and on and on and
Using
on and on.
items.
Using items, getting command traits, just like the suddenly the utility of that thing once it gains that keyword and becomes kind of either a little dude on top or whatever, just skyrockets in this just unfathomable way. So like the untamed monsters should just be murderers by comparison, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I feel that with my my black coach, which is not like it's not bad, but it's sitting in that like almost 300 point, and it's not a hero, and you feel it.
Yeah, but to me, that's actually I think where beasts need to go, because then like their rules are. I mean, maybe you could tighten up a few rules things. Maybe we could play with a few points. That's all just stuff that can happen. You know what I mean? I think
Those are easy.
they're okay. Like, can we improve? Like, probably Bulgors get either a little cheaper or a little better, and Dragon Ogres get a little cheaper or a little better.
Oh, it was pointed out. Yeah, a plastic Shaggoth. Yes.
Oh, sure, that'd be great. Yeah, yeah.
And I even think like an additional ogre unit, like, or let me offer another option. Is to branch out of the Dragon Ogres and do like a multi-build unit with a new War Scroll. Right?
What do you mean? Like different?
Like
I'm not sure.
Like,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so we have like one unit of Dragon Ogres in the Shaggoth. Like that's development space that is begging to be developed.
Do you mean like ogre / other hybrids, like other ogre centroid type of things?
No, but that sounds amazing.
Okay.
What I mean by that is having a kit that is like a dual kit, which is your Dragon Ogres and Dragon Ogre somethings.
Oh yeah, yeah. Dragon Ogre line breakers, the heavy armored siege versions of them, right? That like have extra armor pieces you can staple on them. That are like they're the assault sort of heavy versions, right? That are meant to go in and be able to withstand the punishment, and they're like that kind of anvil-y thing. That'd be super sweet. And just imagine how cool those dudes would look in like super heavy Beasts of Chaos, like rusty armor, like the Siege Giant is what I'm thinking.
They would look the best.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. Absolutely. Yes, I dig that idea all over the place, Tom, and twice on Sunday.
And so that's just updating an old kit sculpt-wise, right? And you get another unit out of the deal.
Yeah, there you go. Good. And that seems like a pretty sexy release, and actually is doing a lot of the things that would feel more beastie to me at that point, right?
And another option is that they could go the route, even though I hate this route, they could go the route of the Puscoil Blightlords.
Okay.
And include the Shaggoth in that kit.
Oh, got it. Sure.
As a build option of those.
Yeah, sure.
Although I don't like that, you could do something like that.
Yeah. None of us are huge fans of that, because then you have like basically you're just building 2 Shaggoths, then is what it ends up being, right? You end up like
or 3, depending on how many you're getting out of a box.
Yeah.
Do Dragon Ogres come in 3s?
They come in 3s, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just referring to like the Puscoil situation, but yes, because then you get the odd number.
The Puscoil or the Flesh Eater Cords.
Yeah.
Either of those are terrible situations, but it is what it is.
All right. So we're not going to touch on Bone Splitters, because they are going to be rolled into the new Orc War Clans book.
Although, can I just say,
yeah,
like I know they hunt monsters and all, but why can't we just have like a war boss on like a wyvern?
No, I don't want them to have any kind of monsters.
You don't?
I really don't. I think they should just be dudes.
It just makes me sad.
Although I would be down for them having smaller animals. More smaller animals, right? Like pigs, like their pig-sized stuff. You know? Like they're hunters, right? So they could have like normal-sized beasts that aren't worth it for them to kill, that they've just broken and trained. And by the way, normal-sized for them means like, horse-sized or something. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not a scary beast to them.
Or as Mogwai pointed out, just like give them a boar rider, just one, like a hero boar rider.
The hero boar rider, I think, is in large call amongst the entire
Iron Jaws.
Yeah, because that's been the Iron Jaws thing too. All right, Do you want to talk? I'd like, even though they might end up in the cities, none of their models got cut. I think we should speculate on Darkling Covens a little bit. Okay? I understand they're going to be in cities probably in some way.
Yeah.
But to me, they're actually the ones most, like, if I was signing their high school yearbook, it would be most likely out of the cities to be interesting enough to get its own Night Haunt faction later. Right?
No, I mean, no, that's not true. Wanderers will be that.
I don't think Wanderers will be Wanderers. I think Wanderers will be Kurnothi, which I just think
Well,
is
what
a
I'm
totally
saying
separate thing.
is that you could get Wanderers with the Karnathi models as Wanderers later, as the Night Haunt breakout.
Fair enough. I was thinking of it differently, but I agree with you. That's another good possibility. At any rate, I think Darkling Covens have some interesting potential. But what do we do with this? What happens here? What would you want to see here?
Give them another hero. I don't care what, just something else. Actually, to be fair, like, I don't know why the Dreadlord on Black Dragon isn't in the faction. Because you have sorceresses, right?
Yeah, sure.
But you also have like blackguards on foot. Why isn't there a blackguard on a dragon?
Well, obviously, narratively, they're all supposed to be like this sort of subservient, like they're all mind whipped by the sorceresses, right? That's the idea. But your point would be, so what? He could be too. Doesn't matter. Sure.
Right. Yeah. Or I don't know. I'm just so frustrated with that faction. Partially because I'm just projecting because they took the elf spot.
They finally won. Take that, you stupid high elves. It's about time you lost.
I mean, maybe the writing was on the wall with the Ed Times, where like they are the true high elves.
That's right. Look, the high elves were always the pretenders, and the dark elves were always the true children, the true wielders, or those who had passed through the flame, rightfully so. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Here's my answer.
What do you think? What do you think they need, a monster?
No. Here's my answer. You ready?
Yeah.
I just want to see them rolled in with Malarian. I want to see them both stay in Cities of Sigmar and rolled in with Malarian. And the story is, like, the narrative behind that is Malarian, whenever he comes out with his forces, some of the sorceresses agree to go back with him, right? And like serve him. Some decide that they'd rather stay independent, and so they stay in Azerheim and amongst the cities of men and fight with them. And you get a split. And just roll them at like that way. So they're kind of like an interesting sub-faction that exists in two different armies. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear that.
If I was going to give
that
them
doesn't make them interesting. So then, like, what does Malarian add to them? Shadow demons?
Oh, Malarian, yeah, he can go hog wild, man. Yeah, Malarian better be like shadow demons and shadow dragons, and like he himself is going to be some big weird shadow dragon monster, and just like, yeah, just go crazy. Yes, and they're the sort of they're the loyal troopers. They become like the baseline battle line of the thing, right? Sure. Because what they don't really have right now is a lot of different utility, right?
And
most of that army
as well.
What's that?
They don't have any mobility either.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, all those different roles you'd want to fill, right? What they do have is some pretty good like blocks of troops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Blackguard, Executioners, pretty good. So like that role is covered. And so what I would like to see is they fill that role, and then you have like flying scouts and flying shadow demons and big monsters and like shadow dragons that breathe like Corsic. You know what I'm thinking of when I think of shadow dragon. I think of the old shadow dragon from D&D that used to breathe like negative energy levels.
Yep.
Like that's the kind of thing I want to see ripping around the battlefield.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then you get sort of like the version classic in cities, and you get a full new build out through the new army, right?
Right. So another night haunting of a faction.
Basically, yeah. Yep. Where they can still hang in their original they can still hang in their original space.
Some units will still sit in that other space.
Right,
Yeah.
but not all. Exactly. Yep. It's what feels like the right thing to be done with them because they have enough sort of core cool figs that are really good sculpts that I think have totally held up. Right?
Yep. I would agree with that.
They just need some interesting things to do. And I think making them be able to participate in two different armies sounds pretty cool. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, I like their aesthetic enough that I rolled it into my Night Haunt.
Absolutely. So. All right. Next up, let's Tom, here we go. Let's tackle a hot topic. The Daughters of Cain. An army you and I both love and know well. What would you add, change, do to the Daughters of Cain upon their re-release in, let's say, 2021? That's when that would probably happen, right?
Thinking.
Okay. I have an easy answer. You ready?
Yes.
Make Marathi actually have some reason to be the general.
Yeah, that's a war scroll change. That's fine. No,
I understand. There's a lot of little cleanup I would do in that army. Obviously I would break all the dumb things, like we'd get rid of Hagnar and all that stuff and whatever.
Sure.
But it's the army, despite being as successful as it is, for people who haven't played it and have only faced it, I'm sorry that if you've got your teeth kicked in. As someone who has played it quite a lot, I will say that and Tom, I don't know if you feel this as well, there's some unfulfilling elements of army construction there, right? It doesn't quite fit together as well as some of the later books do, right?
Right.
They're
Hanger-ons, like Doomfire Warlocks. What are they doing?
Right. If you actually want snakes as battle line, you're forced into a very if you actually want snakes as battle line, you don't get a command ability.
Right.
In the army. Zero. Other than the generics, obviously.
Right.
Because you just don't get that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Domus, which he pointed out, he'd love a Medusa hero between the size between the Blood Rack Medusa and the Marathi.
Sure.
Something in the middle there, something bigger.
That's how big my Warlord Medusa was.
I know. You're right. The model that you had from that one line was
from
right
Celestial,
in that middle.
Yeah. Yep. It's Nua from Celestial, if people are curious. It's a really good stand-in for if you want your general to be a really special Medusa, look up Nuwa, Nua from the Celestial line of miniatures. She's a really, really, really cool stand-in like Medusa. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and I would do something different with the Doomfire Warlocks because the magic is associated with the Medusa line. The Doomfire Warlocks should be re-released as some unit of snake kits. Right? So let the Warlocks be a group of a group of snake people.
Would you want them to be like Yuan-Ti type of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like all the different Yuan-Ti abominations and all those different ones, right? Like the True Bloods, and there's so many different Yuan-Ti extrapolations, like snake bottoms and snake tops and snake faces and snake features, right?
And you can leave them on cav bases, right?
Sure.
So that, and then basically just release a new kit for them and leave them in that unit format, if you wanted to, but then bring them in line with the theme of the army.
I've got one. You ready?
Okay.
I want to see a new monster. It's a classic monster, but I want to see it reimagined into this army, and I want them to do a Quetzalcoatl style monster in the Daughters. Okay?
Like a flying snake? Get out of here.
But with rainbow wings. Yes.
Shut your mouth.
But
Get out of here.
Turn it, but it's it's a bad thing. You know all about Quetzalcoatls. You just talked a whole bunch about dumb Quetzalcoatls when you ran a marathon D&D game for a day for us recently.
I did. You're right.
Tell me the Quetzalcoatl aesthetic. I'm going to just say that word a whole bunch because it's fun to say, Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah.
Tell me that would work awesome.
It would in Seraphon. That's the right answer.
It's not a Seraphon thing. I'm not saying you use actual Quetzalcoatls. Okay. Like, don't mistake me.
You want winged serpents, like feathered wings, or can you do bat wings?
I don't care. Sure, they could be bat wings. Yes, I want to steal that aesthetic, right? The giant winged snakes. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to put my finger on here. Not that I want rainbow lizards or something. I get it that fits more in Seraphon. I'm saying those like winged snakes. Yeah, sure, make them bat wing to show they're sort of twisted by Marathi. Tell me that would be an awesome new unit.
It would be weird, and I don't hate it.
There you go.
Yeah. And then obviously, like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. They need to redo all of the hero situation from a pure, like, So right now, for those of you that don't know, if you want a hero that's not Marathi in that entire army, you have to buy the Cauldron of Blood box, which we like to also call colloquially as the hero box, which gives you 3 heroes. Like, you buy the Cauldron box, you get one hero on a chariot, and then 2 on foot.
Right.
It's the hero box, and they just need to refix all of that.
Fix all of it. Just fix it.
They need to all of it. They need to pull it, split it out, redo the sculpts, give us don't make the chariots push themselves forward magically or something dumb.
Oh, you're saying give them like the Skaven rules?
Right, or yes, or just put slaves on the base of like what I did with all of my cauldrons.
Sure.
Like put people pushing it or something pushing it. Or like dragging it along. Like I hate that aesthetic of like it's just a magical, self-driving chariot. It's not even floating.
They cracked the code on them self-driving chariots. Absolutely.
Right. Like it's the worst.
All right. Fair enough. I accept. Tom, shall we touch on the Devoted of Sigmar and what we hope they become out of this?
It's a fake army.
So if they were going to get reimagined, because all we have left now is flagellants.
Nope.
That's it.
Nope.
You're not even gonna go down this road.
It would be like creating Tomb King. They don't exist. It's not a real army anymore. A Chaos Dwarves, not a real army. So at this point, you are imagining a new army. That's not what we're doing here.
Fair enough.
Those are fake armies.
I accept your pushback. It is dead. If it did ever come back, I would love to see it. I'll say that much.
Now, as people are saying in the comments, I would love an Order of Aesir army. For those that have read the Callus and Toll stuff, the whole point of that being their order agents of the Order of Aesir, which is a witch hunter order.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down. I'm ready, right? But that's not what flagellants are, right?
No,
flagellants are crazy zealots. That's not what this is. These are cold, hard murderers for Sigmar. Burning witches and heretics. That's what this is. Hunting out Tzeentch. I am down for that army.
Okay.
But that's a new army. That's not what we have anymore. They killed witch hunters. They killed the witch hunter model. Poor 40-point model.
He just couldn't get cheap enough to be good.
Apparently.
Okay. Then let's keep going and talk about our reimaginings.
Yep.
Or our additions, I should say.
Yep.
Okay. Next up, let's hit a fairly recent army. Okay, but this will happen to everything. That's our operational premise here. So let's talk about the Gits. Do the Gits need anything, or are they okay? Or what would we change? What would we add? They're so big already. Do they actually need anything?
What has to happen?
Okay.
Okay. Something has to happen with the spiders. Because at this point, you'll be 12 year, 14 year. No, it was the 7th edition box. So 2006. You'll be 15 years removed on the Spider Rider kit. The hero will be in Finecast. The big boss is still in Finecast.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ragnarok will be 10 years old.
Okay.
So I am a big fan of reimagining Spiderfang as its own faction and just a complete new release there.
Okay.
And just split them off. They've always felt as like literal clingers on to Gloomspite. Like literal clingers on. So just get rid of the spiders, make them something else, something new. Leave their like savage aesthetic.
Would you want to see them expound upon like the little, as Will just mentioned in the comments, the spider dudes out of like Warhammer Quest, right? Where you had sort of spidery goblins.
I mean, maybe
they're not bringing those models back; those are gone. But that kind of aesthetic.
I have 120 of those models in that box right there. So I mean, I like them well enough. I think that they aesthetically match. Like they bridge the gap. Let me say that. I think that they bridge the gap for if we wanted to do, if we wanted to have those aesthetics. Of like having them part of Gloomspite, or if you wanted to go towards the more savage, I think you could do that as well. But just something has to be done with them. They're the piece that doesn't fit with the rest of the army.
Okay. So you're happy with like the squig population, the troll population, regular gits. That's all fine. Yep. It's just the spiders is the part you feel that's kind of the hanging chad, as it were.
Yeah. I mean, you have to do something with Gobopalooza because it's such a cool idea. And they're just so worthless on the table. So Gobopalooza needs to be messed with in some way.
I just want to say that the people in the comments nailed this when they said like Driders but with goblins. Yes.
Sure.
Like that's your winner right there. Winner, chicken dinner. Goblins on top with spider bodies, that is a horrifying combination.
Yeah.
I hope we don't come to just like adding more centaurs into everything, basically, as that seems to be a popular thing we've discussed. But at the same time, no, that's super cool. I'm down for that.
And I could be down for that too. Like, to be clear, like I'm okay with that. I'm okay with leaving them in and just refreshing the whole line. And with that, like I would love an Arachnarok with a like a melee goblin hero on top. Literally let the big boss instead of here you go. Instead of simply releasing a new kit of like a new big boss, like the medium kit.
Yep.
What you do is you just re-release the Arachnarok with another sprue, where the big boss is on the back of an Arachnarok. And you redo the rules so that they have a different construction with the Howdah. There are tons of different builds there, I assure you. I've built, by the way, I've just remembered I need to do something for a friend related to the Ragnarok. That's on the air. I have not forgotten. I would do, so I would do that with the Ragnarok, maybe refresh it. I don't mind the Drider form, the Spider Drider form, as like the foot soldiers, the sloggers here. And then I could even go with like full on goblins on the size of like on 50 mil mounts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I could do that as well. So the riders, those spider rider sculpts need refreshed. They're sad. I have 100+ of those, and they're sad.
All right, I dig it. Yeah, I feel like it was good. It was like that was one of the better books. It has such a huge number of options. I'm not sure it needs much, but I think that's a good idea.
Oh, and fix the moon.
Oh, fix the moon. Yes.
Mechanically, like, come on. Here we go. I got a better idea. The moon's out, so the goblins come out. The whole battlefield is affected by the moon.
And just change what it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And just have a series of passive benefits. And you know what you can still do, by the way? Let it move through the phases. Okay? You can still do phases, but you don't have to only affect portions of the board.
Sure. In other words, the moon's out. You're just determining its phase movement, and that's changing some things.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, but the whole board gets affected. Because moons don't only affect a a quarter-mile section of the ground.
Or whatever it's meant to represent. Yeah. It's a
Yes.
very targeted moon. All right.
Super targeted.
Absolutely. Okay. IDK, the Ideneth Deepkin. I think with these newer armies, there's interesting potential here. I mean, obviously the obvious stuff is like make the sharks do something maybe, or like, a lot of this is point stuff, and I'm not really interested in that. Like play with points more, make the Eidolons more worth it, blah 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 blah. Who cares? We all know all that. That's all stuff you don't need a new re-release for, right? So if we're gonna do this army, if it's gonna get a re-release, so 2022 when Ideneth version 2.0 comes out, what changes with Ideneth? What gets added to it? What's not there that should be there?
Just get rid of it.
Just kill Ideneth completely. Got it. I don't think that's a valid answer, Tom. People
Just
like that army now.
Just retire, compendium it. There you go.
Don't be angry. You're so don't be angry because those elves took the place of your those better elves took the place. Wet elves took the place of your dry elves.
The fake elves. I mean, here's the deal. There's two different directions that they have to go. Okay.
Okay.
As somebody pointed out, they have to go with a giant crab. How did we get this far into that army without crabs?
It is shocking.
Like it's a miss. Just a miss. And you know what? Here you go. Crab people. Or no, not crab people. A giant crab, right?
Yeah.
And then chitinous armored foot soldiers in crab armor. So you get a heavy foot soldier.
Sure. Yep.
Right?
Yeah, like heavy elven infantry, right? Like they're wearing
heavy
like
elven infantry and chitinous crab armor. And while we're at it, because supposedly they do like soul magic stuff.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of like soul stealer units. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. But give them something that manipulates souls. Right? Like that's what they're supposed to do.
Sure. Okay.
So there you go. That's my vote.
I have one more small request. I want to see I want to see a school of fish as a thing in some way. Okay.
Oh my god. No, get out of here. Get out of here.
The school of fish would be amazing. I want to see them use a school of fish as a weapon. I can accept this in lots of different ways. I like all the little fish that are on their bases and stuff. I could see it as like a standalone Beast of Chaos type of monster, where it's just like a school of fish. I could see it as an endless spell. I could see it in many different ways.
Question. Mm-hmm. What are their endless spells?
Okay.
Like that's the real question here. Like because that's the interesting development that needs to happen.
Sure. They've got the boat, they've got the terrain. Now they need their endless spells, right?
Right. Yep. I have a couple ideas.
So school of fish, piranhas probably.
Fish. Yep, piranhas.
Something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or like the deep fish that aren't like they're not anglerfish, but they have like all like the teeth on the outside. They're
yeah. Sure.
Yeah, like a school of those.
Yeah, school of like some kind of weird. No, the angler is the angler the one with the little dangly light thing on his head.
Yep.
The thing out of Finding Nemo.
Yep.
Okay, that's an endless spell, but it's just like the head of that fish. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. Like think of the big Ravanax gnashing jaws.
Sure.
But instead, it's just the front of the fish face. It's like the big dangler light ball, and then the angry fish jaws coming up from below. So it'd kind of be shaped like this. Right? You can't see my hands, but they can.
I mean, I can.
Like snapping jaws kind of coming up from below with a big angly thing over top of it.
And it lures units in. And so it's kind of like the horde.
Mm-hmm.
The Slaanesh horde that forces movement
in
direction.
Exactly.
I'm down with that. I'm down with the school piranha. I am down with either a big wave.
Okay.
And I don't know what that does. Like a tsunami.
Yeah,
right?
like a tsunami wave. Yeah.
Yep. And like let it be big. Like I'm talking like boat size.
Yeah, sure. Like really, really push what an endless spell can be. Yeah, giant wave. I'm with you.
Giant wave. And then
By the way, what it would do is it would move the units it hit back. Like it would actually push models back, in addition to dealing like mortal wounds. Like the
yes.
unit would have to move away from it. Right?
Yep. Yep.
Which would be awesome. Like that'd be a great spell. They could push people off of objectives and stuff. Super fun, neat ability, very unique, and obvious and pretty good. The other boring way could be like some kind of wall, sand, reef, coral, whatever. Right? Like it could be any and all of that stuff. Right?
Yeah.
They could have their own wall.
Yeah, and I like the
Water.
crack. Like you could also
It could just
crack.
be a stationary wave wall, a coral wall, a reef wall,
Yep.
a sand wall, like whatever. They could have their boring wall variant if everybody has to have a dumb wall variant.
The other thing that you could do is if you didn't want to do the anglerfish like trap, you could do like the kraken tentacles.
Oh sure, yeah, that'd be a cool one. Like sort of roiling waves, like big kraken tentacles coming out.
Oh well, I was even thinking the wave. I'm just talking about like something.
No, like the base. It would have its own custom base, just like the roiling gravetide. Think of the roiling gravetide, but like not as much of a wave and more just like kind of water being disturbed as big kraken tentacles rip out of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And they grab and squeeze and do all that stuff.
It scanned away on the comment, so I apologize. I don't see who said it. I lost who said it, but why are there no jellyfish related things in this army? Doesn't that feel like an opportunity? Like jellyfish are so cool. How come there's nothing jellyfish related?
It's weird.
I don't know what that looks like. Just get some jellyfish in there somehow. Jellyfish are cool.
Yep.
So there you go. All right. Yeah. That seems like a reasonable expansion of that army. So 2022, because you're right. I mean, that's going to be the thing that happens. They will get their endless spells. Yes.
Yep.
Right.
They'll get endless spells. They'll get crabs, and they'll get crab armored foot soldiers. And like the big crabs, you could do a Howdah and put the crab armored like elves on the back of the crab, as well as having foot soldier crabs.
Yeah. Plus, I really like the idea of that army having like relatively cheaper, more anvil-like infantry. Right. That's kind of a cool idea.
Because they don't have anything like that other than eels.
Yeah, and like
we're all done with eels.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. No, that's a good idea.
That was so 2018.
Boring. Snooze with the eels. Okay. Let's move on to one that I know is near and dear to your heart, Tom. But since we still have no official, like, yes, we all know this book is coming, but we still have nothing official on it, so I think this is fair game. Caradron Overlords. Okay? When it comes out, why not get new units too, or change stuff, or whatever? So, what do they get? What's the reimagined Caradron Overlords 2.0 look like? Besides all the normal stuff we've talked about, like blah, blah, blah points, blah, 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 gun haulers, battle line, yada, yada, yada. I'm not interested in that. That's all boring. We want to explore some blue ocean here to carry on from our IDK, right? We need new stuff. And so let's start here. Let me see if I can structure this discussion for you, Tom, a little bit. Question the first. What is their athermatic prayer equivalent? Right? Because everybody gets to have the spells now, even if you don't have any spellcasters. So they're going to have weird, like their dudes will have little Ghostbuster packs on their back that make athermatic prayers.
No, what they need to do is drones.
Like Tau style?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They summon drones, and maybe they summon them out of the ships. And so when you do your prayer from an Endrin Master, or an Admiral,
sure, They're
they
not
can
prayers, obviously, in this case.
yeah,
They're
like when you do
aethermatic channelings.
when you do your aethermatic activation,
There you go. Sure, why not?
when you activate the rune key, they deploy out of a sky vessel. So they basically shoot off from a sky vessel. So it could be they deploy out of a gun hauler, a frigate, or an ironclad, and they could have a variety of functions.
So you're saying like they would actually summon their little prayers out of the boats because like they're kept down in the hull of the boat, and it's him basically like going beep boop beep boop beep and activating it, and
it's sending a drone out. Right.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, and it's like spins out and has little whirly blades or little engine balloons, and like it could be like a cloud of mines, right? And if enemies move within X number of inches, they blow up and do a bunch of mortal wounds. So you could like have like you could de-incentivize stuff, or you could have like gun turrets, which could function like Gryph-hounds. If enemies are set up nearby, they unleash hell, or you could have and you could go on and on where you could do some type of automated beep boop stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So drones is the answer. And they wouldn't have to deploy, by the way, from ships. Maybe if you deploy them, maybe they have a lower activation value.
Oh, if you call them from the ship.
If you call them from the ship. Otherwise, you're calling them from orbit. From ships in the Aether Sphere, and they can deploy anywhere on the table at a higher activation.
Yeah, sure. You're basically calling like Iron Man in the second Avengers movie or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yep. Or I don't want to spoiler that. Or a recent Marvel film.
Sure, it's fine.
Where drones may or may not have been part of the plot. So drones is the answer. Do they get terrain?
I mean, you and I have previously called for the skyport to show up in some way, or an aircraft carrier, or something like that. Obviously, that was all not like that's not going to happen. So, what if they were really going to get terrain? What would be the thing what would they actually do?
I hope they don't do terrain. Let me just say that.
I would agree.
This is one of those armies where I just don't want terrain.
Well, let me say this. So, Imperial Knights, okay, like in 40K, which you know. A similar like big robot type of thing going on, right? You got a lot of big weapons of war, machines of war.
Yeah.
It's not free terrain because that's not how 40K works, but you can actually bring like like a repair depot is effectively what you can bring along with you, right? And set up on the battlefield, and like if your knight goes and like sits down in it, he can like juice up his weapons or repair or stuff like that, right? So they could have like a mobile docking thing that gets set up.
I mean, I hear that. I just don't like it.
I mean, there's a fair answer.
Now let me say this. I don't mind summoning. Okay. And by summoning, I mean ships dropping out of the Aether Sphere, Battlestar Galactica style. That interests me. You have my attention.
I have a theory for the endless spell.
Okay.
It's easy to go all this robot stuff because they're real technical, right?
Yep.
But I want to expound on an idea that's going to build on what you said about summoning it from the ship. And it comes out of the Stormcast on Monday.
Okay.
The artist talked about how, like, when she pictured their cities, there's all those, like, tentacles and sort of, like, monsters poking their heads around, right?
Yep.
These kind of, like, big monsters. She mentioned how, like, she put those into the art, because it just felt to her like what they would deal with. And it wouldn't be something that was threatening to them. It would be kind of like pest control, like the same way we deal with bugs or spiders or mice in our house or whatever, right?
Yep.
Just kind of the day-to-day life. It's like, oh, that stupid sky kraken poked his head up again. Somebody go shoot him and drive him off, right?
Yep.
So one of their aethermatic activations or summonings or whatever could be them releasing one of the beasts that they've trapped from their cities out of the hull of the ship. You understand what I'm saying? So like it's you summons out of ships, they let loose like this, like one of those sky beasts they've captured, and it goes and flies around.
Literally, like unleash the Sky Kraken.
Yeah, and it's predatory, right? And it flies. Like it fits really well in with that aesthetic. And so yeah, they would unleash the Sky Kraken. Yes.
I mean, I don't hate that idea. I would likewise, I could just see like ships and or balloon boys dropping from the sky as summons.
Sure.
Descending from the Aether Sphere. So, yeah, maybe. I mean, I could see something like that. And I could see an Unleash the Sky Kraken as something like that. I don't know. I'm gonna move on from that. It just frustrates me. I could see them doing some type of like sky buoy.
Sure.
So part of what they're doing is like maintaining clear like trade lanes. And they like have these outposts called something that I'm forgetting. I'm blanking on the name, but they have like a named outpost that's like a floating tower, right? And so like they could do something like that, where like they have these like things that maybe grant navigational bonuses or something. I don't know. I think it's a bad idea. But they could do something like that. Somebody had mentioned in the comments an Aether Cloud. I mean, maybe, but I don't know why it would be near the ground. The whole point of that is it's really high up in the sky.
They could spray it out, though. It could just be a big gaseous cloud that they've captured and brought down.
Sure. I could
Again,
see,
if we're deploying from the if the potential here is you can summon it directly, which I would assume means he like pulls it out of a backpack, or you deploy it from the boat, right?
Right.
They could even have enhanced effects if you summon them out of the boats.
Yeah, I've talked about flying troops, like deploying, like summoning through deploying flying troops.
Yep.
Another kind of low hanging fruit there is they do drop pods. Like I know that we're in technology, but you could just have a bunch of like Argonaut, like the Grunstock Thunderers come,
Sure. They literally just hit out of a drop pod. And like there are some people who've talked about in the comments kind of various types of like golem interpretations and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Well, can I get to that?
Sure.
I do think there is a gap for a heavy armored, what's a good equivalent of this?
I don't know, Tom. What is the good
power? Like the best way to say it would be like a heavy armored power armor like dwarf.
Are you talking about like a Terminator style? Like not Terminator the robot. Terminators like Terminators in 40K.
Probably
the 2-up guys that have like heavier weapons and guns and
Yeah, so there's a line of like Titan Forges, I think the sculptors, and they have like these like metal beard guys, like metal beards, which is like their steampunk dwarves, and they have like this like they're on 50 mil bases. So think about something the size of
like the Ambot.
Yeah, like an Ambot, Ambull level of like just heavy armored. So I'm thinking like give it 8 to 10 wounds.
Sure.
Like put it in the space of like the Eidolons. It can
that
be
feels really big, but okay.
It could be a hero or not, right?
See, I love this idea as like 6 wound, 2 in a pack, ultra heavy infantry.
Sure, you can do that too.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm okay with that. And let them be the anvil of the army. Right?
Yeah,
because
sure.
That's what the mechanically that's what the army's actually missing is any type of tanking anvil unit.
Right. Well, and
so
it's actually an interesting what I like about this concept is so just saying they lack an anvil. Okay. So right, Fire Slayers have an anvil.
Sure.
And that anvil can easily be like 30 unkillable dudes, which means it's really good for holding an objective as well. Right? Like it plays all this repeated multiple duties. Duty. Whereas what I like is I love the idea of them having like actually highly resilient basically like these sort of drop Terminator troops, right?
Yep.
By the way, maybe they're even quite mobile. I wouldn't be opposed to that. You know what I mean? Like maybe they have the equivalent of like jump packs, because it's hard for me to picture anything in this army being just like walking around super slow with no movement capabilities.
No, yeah, like they get dropped from the Aether Sphere, right? And they impact, like
they have little retro boosters they use to slow themselves, so they can use those to perform short range jumps. They have flying while moving, and they blah 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 blah. Yeah, great.
And they jump around. Yep.
Yeah, and their movement's like 8 or something, whatever. But I love the idea of it being like 2 in a unit, 6 wounds, like 3 up save, maybe a 5 up after save even, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like something tough.
Or like give them repairing, like so they self-repair.
Sure. They self-repair, or they're 3 up and they ignore 1 point of rend, or right.
Yep.
100 ways to implement toughness. Because then that's a really interesting anvil for them. But they would still have to move their actual troops out to take objectives, because those 2 guys aren't going to be very good at objective claiming, right? So it still creates an interesting tension in the army, right? It's filling a role that has to be there in some way, but it's not. But yeah, you still have a body challenge. You still got to get your Arco out there or whatever to actually take a point or whatever, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's actually. Like that feels really good in the army, both from like a mechanical perspective and a look and sort of style perspective, right?
Yeah, it's something that would interest me. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool. Somebody mentioned an alternate version of the Ironclad that's like more of the heavy armored, only short range guns type of Ironclad. All right.
Sure.
So much tougher, but only basically has a bunch of anti-infantry stuff, turning it into more of like a battleship type of thing or something, or not battleship, sorry, more like an aircraft carrier thing or whatever.
Well, can I say, like low hanging fruit there would be, one thing that I've been a proponent for is allow the ships to have heroes baked into them.
Yeah, sure. A hero version of the ship, or a named hero version of the ship, or something like that, where it's completely different. A Prince Wardry,
but a Prince Wardry, or just a like Admiral on Ironclad, right?
Yeah.
That like we have rules for mounts of like what is the hero and what is the mount, so you can give the hero an item. You could do something like that, and like easily kind of bake that in, and it's no different than like a vampire lord on dragon, like getting artifacts and be able to navigate that rules situation. And I think that the gun haulers would be nice as like mini like hero chariots basically as well. Like let them embark like solo, like units of one model or something.
Sure. The hero grabs on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Dig it. Okay. Let's move on to one that will actually almost certainly be done like sooner rather than later. I'm not saying this is coming anytime this year, but like if you told me this book got slotted at the end of 2020, I would be like, okay, I believe that. And that is the Legions of Nagash, our all-encompassing death tome, as it were.
Yep.
Like, obviously right now their terrain is non-terrain. They have they got a bunch of like, doesn't it almost feel like the Forbidden Power endless spells were originally supposed to be their endless spells, and then they just decided not to do this book?
Yes. Yep. Yes, and here's what I think is the reason why. I think the end of this narrative road we're on
is the death of Nagash.
Is the death of Nagash. I think that is the journey that we're on right now. I think Nagash is finally overstepped. And I think that we are going to see the splitting of the legions into a bunch of death factions, led by the Mortarks.
Wow. Okay. So
I think the renewal of the so I think this is probably even farther down the road.
Sure.
Like I don't think that but I think that the end of this edition, basically, or the end of this narrative Forbidden Power arc is is the death of either Nagash or the death of his reign.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, he dies all the time in the story. So,
right.
it would, and by the way, if he died, it wouldn't be like he'd never come back. He would just be dead for that period of time, right? There have been lengthy periods of time in the history of both worlds where he's not been around.
Right, and basically what it does is it kills his legion as a unified faction.
Right.
And then it allows them to split out. It allows them to like solve the problem of like, hey, everybody is, like we have said repeatedly, Nagash is this monolithic force. It's a problem for the faction.
Right.
This resolves that.
So let me just make sure I understand what you're saying here, though.
Yeah.
Are you implying that, because you could still call the book the Legions of Nagash, right? Like they're all marching sort of like under his memory, even if he's gone, right?
Right.
Are you implying that the book becomes, let's call it more of like the Skaven style, right? Where you have kind of these units belong to this and these units belong to that various legion, right? And they have there's sort of a set of generic rules and then a set of special rules. Like if you have a blood hero, they gain this abilities and they pass this along and can do this with their troops. And you understand what I mean? Like, are you suggesting a move to that format, right? Or Beast of Chaos or whatever, yeah. Or are you suggesting that, like, literally we break apart death and it becomes, like 3 books or whatever, right?
Well, we're on that journey right now, aren't we? And what I mean by that is we have the Legion of Grief, which is functionally Night Haunt. We have Night Haunt, and it's in its own trajectory. Sure. And then we have basically the new skeleton faction that's replacing the skeleton kit potentially. We don't know that, but it might be. Right? And so we'll have this skeletal faction under probably a Mortarch. And then maybe in the narrative we get the death of some Mortarchs. And some other Mortarch, I could see us spinning out to have, some extant kits and then a lot of it just bend.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, some of the army needs to get cut. Like, there's stuff in there that either needs to be redone or cease existing, right?
Like the vampire, the Blood Knights.
Like Blood Knights need to be redone or gotten rid of. I love the concept, so please redo them. But like the $100 fine cast models that are total garbage is nonsensical.
Yeah. So I had talked last week about doing a website of like kits. Here's a newsflash spoiler for you: Blood Knights, not long for this world.
Sure, but like bat swarms and vampire bats, and there's a lot of like garbage going around in that faction.
Not long for this world.
Sure. There's obviously a lot of great stuff in there too, right? I think what I'd rather see is, maybe there's a split off faction. Maybe whatever this new bone thing is its own thing. I think I'd rather see it reimagined like Beast of Chaos style or Skaven style or something. Cities of Sigmar style, maybe, right? Where they can fly a flag of a particular Mortarch, and then that sets kind of the tone of it, right? Because Cities of Sigmar will...
And maybe that's how they solve this conundrum.
Right, because that feels like it's going to be, you'll have great swords that'll represent Hammerhall or Greywater or whatever, right? But then they'll be operating under different rules and bonuses and principles. Maybe they're battling, maybe they're not, that's just so on and so forth, depending on which city they're representing. I would see this Mortarch thing as being a great way, like reimagine legions as per probably how cities is going to work, and I think you've got a you've got good stuff on your hands there, especially if Big Papa Pump is dead, right? Where his will isn't sort of as clearly and discreetly driving the whole thing, right?
Yep.
Is there anything you'd want to see added to the faction if we were going to go down that road? Like, let's assume this does happen and they do push it back, because it's a big narrative moment, right? Killing a god. Like, I should state that I don't know what that means for using the giant model, right? Like, that kit is a big kit, and they generally hate to take $100 kits out. So, like, the question is, can you play Nagash anymore if he dies? My answer is probably yeah. Because I'm not sure I see a world where they tell you can't play with your Nagash toy. That's the part of it that makes it very, very difficult to believe.
I mean, is it?
Yeah, sure. Because he's still a relatively new kit and still a big model. And
So like, let's play this world. When the Skycutter Chariot gets retired, it will have been out for 6 years, maybe 7.
There's a big difference between the Skycutter Chariot and Nagash.
I mean, maybe.
Not maybe. There is.
But I'm just talking about the age of the kit. And and Nagash came out 2 years later.
I don't know. No, Nagash came out during the end times,
14?
like pre
Right.
the end times. Yeah,
2014.
2014. Yeah,
Right. So again, 2 years later, because it was like 2012 that our Hylos got updated, and so 2014 was 2 years later. So I mean, we're in the same age range of that Nagash kit.
it's I get you're trying to make a parallel there, and I understand the pain of you feel around the Skycutters, but I can tell you there is a difference there, Tom. There just is. There's like 7 people in the world who own Skycutter chariots. There's a hell of a lot of Nagashes.
Right. And so if they've sold all the Nagashes they're going to sell, what does it hurt them to retire it?
Just general malaise of people. Like, I don't think they're actively trying to anger people. You know what I mean?
I think they're moving SKUs. I think that at the end of the day, they're just being aware of their product line.
I think it's more that thing just didn't have a home, wasn't selling, and they didn't have a good use to make of it, so it got cut. Your Skycutter. Whereas Nagash has a home. And you, by the way, you could go, some people have mentioned in the comments, you could go for like the Spirit of Nagash thing. The same way they turned Durthu into the Spirit of Durthu.
Sure.
Right. He could just become a vestige of himself that still, like, that the Mortarks are capable of manifesting in some way and summoning
Sure.
up, right? But he's not old Nagash summoning 8 or casting 8 spells around and blah 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 blah, right?
Yep. That would be one way that they could cut it. Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
So I mean, I we'll see is the answer. That's what I would offer. I want to be clear. I think that I don't have the faith that you do that all kits are like. I think we are living in a new world where the narrative is driving the kit offerings.
I think that's certainly true to some degree, but I also think they have common sense in their head. And if you are even going to try to advance for a moment that there is a close parallel between the Skycutter and Nagash, I will tell you are out of your mind. Like, that is the falsest of false equivalencies.
No. I'm not saying that they are equivalent. Like, I'm not asserting. What I'm saying though that I have no doubt that each kit has a lifespan.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's obviously true. But some of them, in fact, especially the popular ones, tend to have really, really long lifespans.
Yeah.
Really long.
So we'll see.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything I would want to add to the Legions, obviously. Like, I don't know if somebody made a joking comment earlier. Hold on.
So,
Somebody made a joking comment earlier that they could re-release the Guard of Moor for a 4th time as their terrain piece.
I mean, that's legitimate.
Which I thought was a very funny comment.
Michael Davis asked the question of explain. I'm sorry, not Michael. It was Starlight. It was Starlight Night Flame about explain zombies. I am explaining zombies. They survived the initial transition. They won't survive it again. Zombies, as you know them, will not that kit will not make it into the next book. It won't. Just like the giant bats won't make it in the next kit or the next book. That won't survive. Blood Knights are not surviving. Of the lines that I would argue are highly under threat of retiring, most of Legions of Nagash sit in this space because
most is too strong. There's a lot of kits in there that are rock solid. It will not go away. But I understand what you're saying.
Okay,
a good number.
I would argue maybe half of Legions of Nagash is on the chopping block.
You're just thinking of way too many things you're forgetting way too many things that are in this army. It's so ridiculous. Because you're there are so many variants. But like I agree with some of the things you're saying, because like the zombies or like are certainly a good one. Maybe like the old vampire lord that's still fine cast, the dude with the wings,
Yep.
right? Um, Probably like certainly like the bats and
The
all the
bat
different bats and the
swarms.
blood knights, but like things like the black knights and the hex wraiths, all the plastic stuff, all the mortarks, the coven throne and all its variants,
Yep.
like that stuff's going to stick around through the next version.
Yep.
The
Yep. No, I
Terrorgeist and Royal Terrorgeist guys, those are all
Yep.
sticking around. You
Yep.
know,
I agree with all of that.
and that's just there's so much in there. There's so many different things going on in that army that aren't under threat. But I agree with you. There's a lot more. The only army with more outright junk still sitting in it, like ancient kits that are still sitting in it, is Skaven. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking down the list, zombies.
Sure.
Karen Wraith is in plastic, Necromancer's in plastic. Yeah, so the old Vampire Lord in resin to all of your metal heroes. Your White King with Baleful Tomb Blade,
Yeah,
or Black
the
Axe.
White King variants. Yeah.
Both of the White King variants are gone.
Isn't one of those plastic?
Nope.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty.
The Bat Swarms are gone. The Black
People in the
Coats
comments
are gone.
need to verify that. I've never bought that guy, but I could have swore that the guy with the crown and the sword is in plastic. And now he's on like a modeled base, I think, like a modeled square base. But I thought he was in plastic.
But the Bat Swarms are gone.
Sure.
Like going down that line. Here we go. Let me do it this way.
Thank you. Yes, people in the comments said yes. The sword White King is plastic. That's
the Sword White King is plastic. The axe is fine cast.
Yeah, because one was Krell, and one was just generic White King.
Yep. So the Blood Knights are gone.
Sure.
The Vampire Lord on Nightmare Steed is gone. Fell Bats are gone. Zombies are gone. The Corpse Cart might stay. Will probably stay. It's a nice kit.
It's a nice kit.
Although
it's plastic, it's popular. It probably stick around.
The White King on Skeletal Steed will go. Those two Vampire Lords that are fine cast will go. The White King on Black Axe will go. The Bat Swarm will go. Probably the Dire Wolves will go. The Necromancer with Hat will go. The Von Karstein female Vampire Lord will go.
Yeah, but none of those are the real War Scrolls. If you're just talking about like some of the models that are up on the site, sure, but they'll all just get rolled in and be counts as stuff. Like, yes,
Right.
They'll retire those models, but like they're not going to get rid of the concept of Vampire Lord, which, by the way,
Black Coach will go.
Sure, the old Black Coach, yes,
The
obviously.
old Black Coach, because it's its own unit that's not the Night Haunt unit. And so like I've just listed off 10 units that have their own War Scrolls.
Well, models, most of those have counts as stuff, right? Like Necromancer with Hat doesn't have his own doesn't have his own War Scroll.
No, I agree with that, but
Isabella doesn't have her own War Scroll anymore. You know, yes, I agree they'll retire those models.
do we have any non-fine cast vampires?
Yeah, I mean the dude on Zombie Dragon, he's plastic.
Sure. But I'm saying like on foot.
The guy with the wing, which is the classic one on foot, right? He's fine cast.
Yeah, and like I think all the named ones that got converted over all metal or fine cast.
Right.
So I say all that to say, like a lot of this book is up for like non-renewal.
Sure. It's actually more models than it is War Scrolls because so much of it was already condensed. But
Right.
yes, there's still plenty of scrolls there too. I mean, the obvious build out here, by the way, if we were talking about like the reimagining of this, especially in a post Nagash world, like let's say you're right on a crazy call like that, right?
Yep.
It would be the vampires. Like that's what could be expanded. Vampires have this huge, rich lore in Warhammer. They're very self-possessed creatures and always have been, right? That were never really comfortable under the jackboot of Nagash, right?
Yep.
And it would be so easy to do like an entire vampire sub faction build out, whatever, right? It could still be in the same book or anything, whatever. But like You could have new blood knights. You could have new blood anything, right? You can do 100 interesting things with vampires.
Yeah, like I'm counting at least 8 of the actual units, not model offerings, but units that will likely walk.
Yeah, sure. I could definitely see in the 6 to 8 range. But again, it's a big faction by War Scroll, right?
It is. It is. There's 30 some of them. So you're talking about like a quarter of the range.
Sure. And by the way,
I could see vampires, again, I agree with you. I could see vampires being one build out of that thing.
yes. And let me answer a comment real quick. Sergeant Death said if they redid the whole thing and didn't keep the old classic undead theming, he wouldn't like that very much. I don't think that's what would happen at all. There's too many of these kits that are too valuable and have set the aesthetic. They're not going to redo 30 kits in a line, right? What I am suggesting though is that like they could do a sub build out, like in a vampire thing, and take that in a slightly new direction, right? But for exploring new death directions, they're going to go the direction of like the Feast of Bones stuff that we saw in that, this Mongolian themed undead. That's how they'll do that. This will always be undead classic, or always is a long term, but for many years to come, this will be undead classic because there's too many kits to redo all at once, right?
Right, but we're gonna get to a tipping point, and that's what I'm suggesting. Like we have Nighthaunt as its own thing. We have this new bone, this new skeletal oriented thing, right? That could easily take the place of or relieve the skeleton and Graveguard kits. Right?
Could. I don't know that it necessarily would.
I don't know that it will necessarily, but what I'm saying is when they choose to discontinue those, like you have some of that aesthetic in this, and then all you'd have to have is like a vampire one, right? And then you could do some death culture one, like the where your necromancers and like a reimagined zombie and some of that stuff fits, right?
Maybe. I mean, I think the real immediate move here, like on a long enough timeline, Tom, sure, maybe like 10 years from now, right? What I'm suggesting more is like
that's way too long of a timeline. We're talking 5 years, bud.
You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Like I understand you're convinced on this fast time frame, but it's just not how things work. Like occasionally things happen like that, but it's not. The churn you're setting up there for the game is unsupportable because the whole game doesn't get refreshed every 5 to 6 years. Yes, sometimes new kits burn.
No, I don't think that. No, I'm not saying that the whole game's getting refreshed. I'm saying that a quarter of the units in this book are non-starters, that they don't have a future.
Right, and if they come out with a 2.0 and have 5 new kits and keep the rest, you're good to go for another X number of years. And you're going to jump to the 6-year, 7-year time point easily off of that.
Right. And what I would say is that I think I suspect the trajectory is going to be what they've already started with Death, which is rather than continue to march in this like whole coagulated, like larger mass, I think that you will see build outs that will either, like it could be like the middle ground here is that you get a Cities of Death or whatever equivalent, like a Legions that leans more into that where like certain death units are battle line and they lean more into the mechanics of the Cities of Sigmar stuff.
Sure.
Like the Skaven. And then on the other side, in the second release out, so instead of in the next 2 years, maybe in the next 6 years.
Sure.
And then you move to a full like 6 different death books.
Well, I mean, the tradition of death is to constantly expand and retract, right? Like that is the history of death books in Warhammer. They'll all come together into one big book and then slowly spread out into their own books and then be recombined. Like that would just be par for the course for death, right?
Yeah.
Also mummies. There you go. I have nothing else to add, just mummies.
Yeah, I would love mummies. I'm down with that.
Mummy Momuggy, he's a good mummy. All right. Next up, Nurgle. We talked about Nurgle a little bit. They'll be up on the block at some point.
Yep.
Any thoughts on Nurgle? This is your wheelhouse, man. You played this army before it was cool. So what's the Nurgle thing? This is your like one claim to hipsterism, Tom, right here.
Sure. I don't know. I mean, if I were GW, I would lean into Nurglings.
Does Nurgle just need... Well, let's put this question out here. Like, I'm okay. Not everything needs more stuff. Nurgle's huge. As a faction, it is shocking how much Nurgle has, right? Especially if you consider the mortal stuff, right?
Yep.
So is the answer with Nurgle... No, they just really need a refreshed book at some point and call it a day. They'll be one of the simple ones. And they don't really need new stuff. I mean, the probably the lowest hanging fruit, by the way, would be some kind of Poxwalker equivalent. Right? If you wanted to go for like yard trash infected marauder type of people.
Maybe. I mean, maybe. Like, I think that Nurglings are the future.
Nurglings are the future. That's your campaign poster. Tom 2020.
Yeah.
Nurglings are the future.
Like, I think they discovered that they realized that all the sexy was in the little Nurglings that came with all the kits.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I just think that I think they figured out the formula too late. And like the actual like horde of Nurglings unit will be old by then. It'll be like 20 years old. That kit is a like that Nurgling bunch has been around for a very long time.
Sure.
And so maybe it's like different, like I don't know.
Do you want to see different configurations of Nurgle swarms? Not just like Nurgle swarms doing interesting things. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe 5 of them are riding a big Nurgle mount. Okay? Maybe they're doing some kind of Muppet Man thing, right? I don't know. Like my point is that like there's, yes, they're cute, but they're often just like distraction stuff. It's hard to picture them carrying a main role in any way.
I don't know. Maybe.
All right.
I don't know is the answer.
Gotcha.
But I think that's where the magic is. Like
Okay.
if they want design space to play in, I think Nurglings are that design space.
Yeah, for me, it'd be the Poxwalker equivalent. That's what they're missing. They're missing like an infected, right? Like a Rotbringer cheap version. Like not Blight Kings, but just regular old human beings that have been infected and are like, going around and being gross.
Sure. Yeah, and I would support that too.
Yeah, I mean, that to me is like the lowest of hanging fruits, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So that brings us next to our lizard people, to the Seraphon. First name, last name, occupation, lizard man, or as I call them, Slon. I, of course, refer to their pre-4th edition name where they were just called Slon. Not confusing at all. This is another army, by the way, that like whenever I could see a Cities of Sigmar style cull happening to this army. Right?
Yeah. Like you're assuming that they're going to survive.
Oh, I don't think the Seraphon are going anywhere. People love the Seraphon. There's a lot of love for Seraphon in general. If you're asking me, do I think they're going to cut the whole faction? No way, no how. It's too interesting and popular and fun and weird. But there's a lot of junk models in here. There really is. Like, I don't see a world where this goes away. But I do see a world where they gut some of this old crap out, right? Like, there's a lot of old Vinecast and just goofy things hanging out here.
Yeah, I mean... Here's a question. Do the big lizards survive?
The Carnosaurs?
No.
Or what do you mean by big lizards?
Blanking on their name.
Bastillodon?
No.
Stegodon.
Not the monsters.
Okay.
The swords.
Kroger. Saurus.
Do the Sauruses as a whole survive? Or is it only the skink units?
No, the Sauruses survive, absolutely.
Because the only actual like updated plastic Saurus kit is the Carnosaur. Every other one is either fine cast or bad plastics.
Bad plastics.
Yeah, like I'm looking.
You're saying the Saurus Alpha whatever on Alpha Carnosaur, that guy, right? Is the plastic, is the new kid.
Like the Carnosaur, like that. Yeah, that's the new kit.
Yeah.
But like the
Saurus
Knights
Old Blood
are
on
junk.
Carnosaur or whatever.
Yes. Yep. The Saurus Knights are junk. The Saurus Warriors are junk. All the heroes are fine on foot or fine cast. Like maybe the Saurus Guard. They're 15 years old, but they're not as old as the rest of the stuff.
Like the Temple Guard.
The Temple Guard, maybe they survive as like in the call.
By the way, that's what they like. Here's what I'll say. Okay.
Yep.
If we were to trim this down,
yeah.
So let's just imagine we could do a full repeat on this. Okay, like let's just say we could start from there. I would keep all the big giant T-Rex riding monsters.
Yep.
As well as like the skinks on Stegodon.
Yep.
Obvi and like the Bastillodon. All those things are just cool. Like people look at that stuff and want to play that army, right?
Right. They remember Dino Riders from the 80s and they're like, I'm in.
Yeah. Like there's no way you want to get rid of any of that stuff. Okay.
Right. Yep.
The skinks themselves are cool. Like just the regular skinks, popular kit, plastic kit, cool kit, serves a good role in the army, useful, look cool, easy to paint. Like the skinks are a win by any measure, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the Saurus and the Temple Guard, or Saurus Guard, whatever they're called now, the fact that one of them has that dumb name and they didn't keep Temple Guard shows that you have a gore Vestigore problem.
Yes.
Right? Where you've got this unfortunately the middle bowl of porridge in this scenario is the loser, right? Like Ungor in a Beast of Chaos army, good. Vestigore in a Beast of Chaos army, also good, right?
Yep.
But like Gore, it's very hard to make them be anything because they're sort of that middle ground unit, right?
Yep.
So maybe the right answer is, yeah, sure, we keep the Saurus, and they are the Temple Guard. Like that's just the new reimagined version, and they're the sort of heavy anvil, the grinding anvil of the army, right? Yep. They're damaging enough, but they're tough as nails, right? Make them multi-wound, rend reducing high armor save infantry, right? And there just isn't regular Saurus or Saurus Guard. There's just Saurus, and that's how they work. And by the way, it doesn't like no old models are lost here. If you have Saurus, you have the new Saurus. If you have Saurus Guard, you have the new Saurus. You see what I'm saying? Like it doesn't
like basically War Scroll wise, all Saurus warriors become Saurus Guard.
Right. Exactly. And so the
so they discontinued the Saurus Warriors. They discontinue the Saurus Riders, like the Cold One Riders, because they're dumb.
Well, actually, here's what I'll say. That's one of the kits they should redo, like reimagine that. Like, because assumingly, if you're going to cull a bunch out, you're going to add new kits in. The Saurus Cav.
Put skinks on those.
Well, first of all, I'm all like, you want to bring back teeny weenies riders, I'm all about it. But but no, I think that actually. I think you absolutely reimagine those. You redo that kit, okay? Because that's your mobile hitting power in the army. You see what I'm saying? You have that be like your fast, hard striking unit. That's your shock troop. And so like mechanically it works and makes sense in the army. It has a purpose. It would be a cool kit to redo because it's such a good idea, right? Of like a dinosaur riding another dinosaur is just generally cool.
It's the premise of the army.
Right. And so like it just would be a great that's a great kit to open up a new opportunity with, right?
Yeah, what you can probably kiss goodbye is the Razordon with handlers and the The what's the other one? And the salamander with handlers. Those are probably done.
Sure. I mean, those are really, again, those are old. It's hard to imagine them not like if there was going to be a cull, they would most likely be on the chopping block, right?
Yep.
That being said, I like the idea of the thing. So cool. Just again, that's a good opportunity for another remake. And by the way, what I would love to see there, kind of filling that role, is a sort of Age of Sigmar Mortal Realms infused Ichthyosaurus.
Sure.
That little dude that spits on the guy from Seinfeld in Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Right. And but instead of just spitting like weird black sticky tar or whatever that incapacitates their enemies, they spit hot fire, So
Sure.
or whatever.
Sure.
Like that's again, then we just get cool new dinosaur dudes.
So what are their endless spells?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, they're in the spells.
What's their terrain piece? I know what their terrain piece is. That's an obvious one.
A big giant temple, right?
Like an Aztec spawning pool temple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, and it's not their actual ship. It's their like landing pad ship that teleports out of the big ship.
Yep.
Right? It's the lifeboat of their actual spaceships.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Agreed on that completely. Yep. And lots of good ideas here. So let's. I'm just gonna read off the comments. Jungle swarms, a meteor, like lots of votes for swarms of snakes and serpents, which that makes sense.
Yep.
Somebody had said, like I don't know if Tar Pit from Mike was meant to be like the endless spell or their terrain piece, but there you go. But yeah, like the swarm of snakes does seem like that is the one that would be there, right? Absolutely.
Right. Based on the past history of the like the Sotek stuff, yeah.
Yes. Like and plus we've seen similar spells like the Skaven in the spell that's just a bunch of rats and crap like that, right?
Right.
So like the spell just a bunch of those things is kind of an easy one that makes sense.
Yep. A bunch of spiders, bunch of rats.
Like yeah, sure, exactly. A bunch of spiders, bunch of rats. Yeah. So what else is there? And like, okay, let's say that's good. What else have they got?
Do they do something with the stars?
That's what it feels like, right? It feels like there needs to be a constellation-y thing, but I don't know what the hell that. Maybe it's literally like one of those little like a
like the Dracothian Zodiac Manifest or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe it's a sundial, some type of like the whole Aztec calendar-y thing. So something cogs-ish, but instead of but it being a calendar, like some type of calendar timekeeping thing. I don't know.
Hold on, I want to answer a comment real quick. No Adventures of a Wizard, which is a great name, by the way. There's no Seraphon tome. This is our speculation show of like if we were going to redo these or when these get redone, what are the types of things we would like to see in them. So don't want to get your hopes up. We did set that as a caveat at the beginning, but if you're just joining us, you wouldn't have caught that caveat. So no, this is just us wish listing and discussing. So there you go. Yeah, I think that'd be a good one. I think you could also if you wanted to go for, they could really lean into the snake theme, okay? Yep. And you could have a big giant viper maw. I know I keep pitching maws as endless spells, just different kinds of heads.
You do,
but it's a good endless spell. Like it works, giant viper fang snake head would work. I understand I'm pitching low hanging fruit here. That's not the best.
Yeah,
but it would work.
Yeah.
I don't like the Comet only because it feels like it comes, like some people have mentioned Comet. The only reason I don't like Comet is because I feel like it's already done, right? That's a Stormcast thing. Like they get the Comet. So, it just feels like it's in that territory too much.
I wonder if there's something that you could play with like the machine, like the Engine of the Gods stuff.
Maybe. You could also go for more of like the star type of thing, right? Like it could be Starfall. So like instead of one big comet, picture like maybe one of their other spells is like 5 tiny little bases that all fall around the table. You understand what I'm saying?
Like Rain of Stars?
Yeah, like Rain of Stars. Yeah, exactly. Yep. I mean, like that would be that still it plays in the same space, but it's more kind of it's within their aesthetic, right?
Yep. I would go with that.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Anything else we want to touch on with Seraphon? I agree with you that like whenever these come up, it's very likely that they're gonna be going through some kind of transition, right?
Yeah. They are going to be butchered.
I like my wording a little better than your wording, Tom. All right, let's then talk about the most popular of all factions, the thing that no one is ever sad to see a new release of. Stormcast. Like, we're due a Stormcast tome, right? It's coming. We know it's coming. So, what happens with Stormcast next, Tom?
Sigmar will lose the ability to reforge Stormcast.
Oh, geez. I don't know what that world looks like. All right.
And Liberators will be discontinued.
Gotcha.
That's the lore. That's the lore rationalization for them discontinuing Stormcast models. No, I think realistically we get in the Covenant Chamber something Sisters of Sigmarish.
Okay. I mean, let me ask this question. Do we just keep fixing the problems with Stormcast by opening more chambers? Is that the perpetual go forward?
That's the meme, and they're living into it. They are living their best life now with that meme.
Sure.
Like they broadcasted that with the meme of like, no, open more chambers. Like that's what this is.
Is the long enough timeline and trajectory on this that they just go so far with the number of chambers that have been released that they're forced to break up the Army Space Marine style? Yes.
I've said this since before the last book release.
Mm-hmm.
That's our trajectory.
Sure.
Like they will continue to launch chambers until they have the mass, right, necessary to release the first Hammers of Sigmar book. And then the Hallowed Knights book. And then the Anvil of Heldenhammer book. And then the Astral Templars book.
Sure. Or they could do it. They could also take a bite out of sort of the new Space Marines and kind of have like mini codices. They could have one broad codice and then the mini build codices.
Sure. Whatever. Yes. That's probably where we're going.
Sure.
I mean, again, I called that with the last book. That's eventually that's the end of this road. All of our named characters right now are Hammers of Sigmar.
Mm-hmm.
And so like getting a bunch of named heroes for the other chamber, like and like alternate sculpts of models are all going to allow for this.
Right.
Like right now, you think it's accidental that we have a bunch of limited release heroes or limited release like champions of like Liberators and stuff like that. Don't be surprised when a couple years down the road suddenly that like one dude standing on an orc head, right, is a Lion of Sigmar named hero sculpt that shows up. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Like that what they're doing now in these special edition models is they're paying for the molds and building their volume so that they can branch out and do the individual chambers with different kits.
Yep.
Like that, like if I were in GW shoes, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
So you do these limited releases that pays for the molds or that diffuses the cost until they're ready to do the full line releases.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also like interesting because you do have to reach a critical mass of this, right? It has to be built up. You have to get the interest, and much like Space Marines, there'll be people who really love them and go support the individual chambers, and that becomes their thing. You've got to build up a critical amount of like narrative and story and characters and everything. It's not just the models, right? You have to give a crap about like your Dark Angels, and there has to be jokes out there about like, are the Dark Angels loyalists or traitors and whatever, right? Like you need all of that detritus. There's more. Like Space Marines are more than just literally those models, right?
Right. Like people own the narrative of what's going on. And we'll get there. Like it seems like that's the trajectory that we're on. And that's just what they're going to do, and that's okay. And maybe we have a Deathcast betrayal. Right? Like Anvils of Heldenhammer aren't far off, folks.
All right. No, I do not disagree at all. Right? Like that's on a long enough timeline that just feels like the right answer, right? And by the way, someone in the comments asked about like Aventus Firestrike and Astria Soulbright and said, aren't they in the same chamber as Sequitors? No, they're both Hammers of Sigmar. Yes, they're part of the like they're part of whatever the new.
They're a part of the chamber structure, right. But they're not a part of. They're not a different.
They are sacrosanct, right? As opposed to the other
chamber, but they're part of the Hammer Stormhost.
Correct.
All of our named characters have been Hammer Stormhost.
Right. That's what you're meaning to say. Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I had to go double check them just to make absolutely sure, but I went and looked them both up.
Yeah, and so releasing chambers, like we'll get a Sisters of Sigmar, Sisters of Battle chamber at some point that'll be predominantly women. It will probably be maybe the Covenant chamber, I think.
Sure.
Be very nunish. And then we have like the Ruination chamber, which people had suspected was like War Machines, maybe. Maybe. Who knows? And I think there was one more chamber that was in the book that hasn't been dealt with yet.
I'm down. Yeah. I'm so down for that first one you mentioned.
Which one?
The first one. Nothing. Although Ruination sounds pretty cool, whatever that means. I don't know what that means, but that sounds pretty cool.
Ruination being like the remnants of the Stormcast that are just robots, like the hollowed out shells.
Sure.
Of whatever. I could see Ruination be something like that. So they're like more machine now than man, and they're like larger than normal Stormcast. I could see something like that. Like I could see a world where that exists. Covenant, Ruination, and Logister chambers. The Logister chambers, it wouldn't surprise me if those are like normally clad dudes. So they all look like the Lord Ordinator.
Right. They're more of the like tacticians,
like scholars and tacticians, stuff like that. Yep. And by the way, with the Logister, it wouldn't surprise me if you have a bunch of like zealots. So like if Devoted get backdoored in, they would get backdoored in with the Logister chamber.
Sure.
Like that would be my guess. Is like they are the chamber that works most closely with humans.
Or alternatively, it's the Ruination chamber. Because the Ruination chamber is like the Kelly's Heroes Suicide Squad. What is this? Some kind of Suicide Squad? Right? They're the ones that they just literally like send in to destroy everything, and you don't come back from those missions, right?
Sure.
And so like that's where they'll frequently work with like things like flagellants, people who are just completely fanatical beyond reason, right? Sure. And will go and happily throw their lives away for Sigmar to destroy something.
Yep. Very possibly. So what? That means we're 3 books out?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. 3 books out. I'm just assuming we're going to be on like a new Stormcast book every, let's say, 2 to 2.5 years. Every 24 to 30 months.
Say we're on a countdown right now.
Yeah, sure. We've gone a year because obviously we had one when AOS 2 launched, right?
Yep.
And we're not going to. I'm not sure we'd get to next summer and not have a new chamber get cracked. Like he's going to end up on the back foot somehow.
And we haven't had a like super heavy like priest chamber. Have you noticed that? Like, we've had priests sprinkled in.
Yeah.
But we haven't had any like heavy priest chambers, and we have a heavy magic chamber right now. And so like I could see something like that either with the Covenant chamber or the Logister chamber. Probably the Covenant chamber.
Okay. No, I'm down with that. I agree. Just keep throwing more models on this pyre. Let's do it. Just go to such an insane critical mass of war scrolls and models in this army that like we have no choice but to give them the space marine treatment. I'm fine with it. Fine with it.
I mean, it's where we're at.
Look, you built the statue out front. Let's make it real, okay?
Right.
Just saying.
Right. You're in for a dime.
That's right. Exactly. All right, last one. Tzeentch. Obviously, we got the little rumor of them being the final tome of the year. Okay, but that's very new. So does Tzeentch just need its book re-released? In the story, they make mention of new types of things. That's the only reason I pointed out. Okay. It actually sounded like they were...
Last time. Tzeentch only really got Zangor last time. Like, they got their Lord of Change. They didn't get any refresh on any of their demons.
Right.
Well, no, they got their horrors. They got blues and brimstones.
Sure, they did. The horror thing got built out. Like, they got some stuff. Like, don't get me wrong. They got some stuff last time.
Make flamers great again. Amen. Yeah, I don't know.
I will tell you what I would like it to be in Tzeentch, okay? I'm not sure that they really need much, if anything, okay? They are very big, and I certainly agree with the, like, make flamers great again stuff.
Sure.
Or make acolytes not be terrible. Like, there was quite a lot in that release. If you consider, like, the two different types of little horrors and the acolytes and the new Lord of Change and so on.
Yep.
I would like to see a couple more weird demonic creatures that aren't just like wizards but actually have a purpose. So like my favorite thing in the Tzeentch army was all like my favorite models that they always had was the screamers, right? The little manta ray things, yeah.
Yep.
Because they're just so weird, and like it was neat that they had the chariot that they pulled, like the herald around, and you had the actual little shark fin monsters. They've never been really great because they're always in a weird space, right? But they don't have to be. Like there's certainly ways you can design those kinds of like pseudo elite.
Are you just beating around the bush and saying you want shark surfers again?
Look, I definitely want shark surfers. Okay, so yes, I mean if you're telling me I can get some like horrors on or something like that, riding a shark, yes, I'm totally down for that. Oh, sorry, riding a screamer.
So screamers pulling chariots aren't enough for you.
Correct. No, but my point is, it's not actually to say expand the screamers. My actual point is, I would like more weird manifestations of chaos like that. You know what I mean? The problem is the army has come so much into the various different types of horrors because we got like pink to blue to brimstone, and that's all just boring because they just look like little bubblegum monsters, right? Whereas the screamers were still interesting in how they were defined, right? And the flamers are so strange and off-putting. I would love, like, Tzeentch is really the one that plays with that, like, just madness personified, right? Where they're pseudo formless almost, right? And just have all these weird things going on about them. I would love to see them explore that a little more. So add in a couple more units like that. You know what I'm saying? Of just like the sort of abject weirdness of chaos. Sure. Khorne, Nurgle, and Slaanesh, the things that they manifest are pretty ordered, all things considered. Right? Like, Khorne's people like, just look like a bunch of angry dudes. Yeah.
You want masses of, like, mouths and tentacles.
Yes, exactly. Just weird stuff that actually feels super chaosy, right?
Yep.
Like, just this things that look like they've been pulled inside out, taken apart, and reassembled, or whatever.
So
right?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Shouldn't that just be maybe the endless spells?
Sure. I mean, that could be a way to go too. Yeah, I mean, their endless spells could be like that. Certainly, they will get their own endless spells, right? I mean, if any army is deserving of endless spells, boy oh boy, is it Tzeentch, right?
Right.
So what are their endless spells?
I have no idea.
Well, one has got to be a big coruscating. I want to see one be a big double coruscating pillar of pink and blue fire. You understand what I'm saying? Like two pillars of flame that are technically like circling each other. It could be one model, it could be two models. I don't care. But right. So these two pillars of flame, one being pink, one being blue. That's definitely one. Okay. I think a big like I mentioned in that story, they had that the guy has like visions of like a giant vulture bleeding with like bleeding bronze eyes or something.
Yep.
That could be a cool in a spell, like a big vulture monster that's like sort of dripping molten metal. Like obviously Tzeentch has a lot of claim in the realm of Chimone, right?
Right, which is weird, but sure.
Sure. So like that could be that like that kind of a big vulture type of like a vulture bird, but not actually a bird, right? Just magic.
Yep.
Would be a cool endless spell
like
for
a
them.
Phoenix-esque bird made of warp fire.
Mm-hmm. Just a giant mass of like tentacles and mouths, like you described, like that gibbering horror thing. Like just literally a grave tide sized mass of tentacles and claws and mouths and eyeballs. Seems like Tzeentch's endless spell, right?
Right.
Like that would be a. I think that one's pretty solid.
Appropriate. Sure. Sure. I could be down for that.
Okay. Some people have asked for a giant kind of all-seeing eyeball. Okay. I could see that. Like Tzeentch plays with the eye aesthetic quite a lot. So I could definitely see the giant eyeball mechanic. Like, yeah, like maybe a stationary thing.
You see something like that even in the banner. Like the banner of the Burning Horde is like a burning eye.
Yeah. The center of Tzeentch's symbol, that circle that's in the middle, is often cast as an eye, right?
Yep.
So, yeah.
I can see that. Do you want to see anything else explored with the Acolytes?
Not really. They're just so boring.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, do they
give them
need
better
to
rules, I guess, but no, I don't need anything else with them. Are you saying like mount them on something, put them on a chariot, like do other interesting things with them? Is that what you're asking?
Maybe have other classes of Acolytes, like more in the cult theme.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Yeah, okay. Like a little more of like the up. I mean, Tzeentch classically works through cults that kind of infiltrate and do stuff. And by the way, even in that story, that seems to be what's happening. So like, yeah, I could see that. Maybe like some sort of acolyte cult leaders, or high priests or infiltrators or stuff like that that could have interesting effects on the enemy's army. Yeah, that's a cool idea. Okay, I dig that. You brought me around on that one, Tom. Yeah,
Something.
there you go. Anything else we need to do with Tzeentch?
I mean, not really.
All right. Then that brings us to the end. There you go, buddy. We did it. All right, now.
Fix everything?
We fixed it all. Again, for like the fourth time. We've done it. The point is, if any of these come true, mark the date, 8/14/2019. If any of these come true by 2022, we get full credit. Boom, nailed it.
You're ridiculous.
Look,
but I will absolutely claim credit for it.
Absolutely. Look, man, you want to win, it's about shots on goal. Okay? That's what you got to do. You just put some shit, you got to put as many shots on goal as you can, buddy.
Sure. Yeah, like I think that we're going to get, let me just say, like we're really in a matter, like we're in a space. It's a matter of time before we finally get those gold scrolls.
Yes, gosh in heaven, how has this not happened yet?
So I'm gonna make my my Slaves to Darkness call now.
I'm ready.
Okay. This was the missed opportunity of 2019. We have the cities of Sigmar dropping right now.
Mm-hmm.
And having read the City of Secrets book, which was just a delightful read. It was a fairly short book, and it was about like it featured the Order of Aesir and this city Excelsius, and the whole premise is that like spoiler, a Tzeentch cult has infiltrated and like turns half the city against itself. Okay.
Yep.
Man, what a great opportunity it would have been to release, like, to have Slaves to Darkness be the follow-up to Cities of Sigmar and allow some of your city's units to either ally to Slaves of Darkness,
sure,
or be marked by them and included in those armies.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the handgunners are actually Tzeentch, like, that faction of a city. So it talks about, like, the corruption of the cities. Who are actually slaves to darkness. They're not, like, they have turned their allegiance to the Chaos Gods, whether it be Tzeentch or any of the other ones. Like, it just seems like there was such an interesting opportunity here with some of the civilization groups. Yeah, I don't know. Just saying, it would have been a great opportunity to bridge the gap to have the war scrolls that can cut multiple grand alliances. That's what I was.
I just feel like it's only a matter of time. How it hasn't happened yet is mystifying to me. So, like, it's got to happen, right? Got to.
I mean, or maybe not. Maybe they maintain a hard line between the factions forever.
I just don't see it. We've got to go gold eventually. So it feels like Design Space too ripe to explore. But I don't know. There we go. Time will tell.
Well, market wise, like, it seems like a home run, right?
Absolutely. It's a super money maker because then you've got two different yes, absolutely.
You have like two different grand alliances that can buy the same kit and use it.
Yep. Yeah, that is what we call the money. All right. Well, Tom, this is a good show. I'm glad we got our new system working here. This seems eminently doable. We got the audio all worked out, and everything seemed like it ran fine there. So I'm sorry about the bad audio at the beginning or the little whining noise or whatever. Everybody, thanks for coming along on this journey. I'm glad that YouTube hasn't disrupted our ability to do shows from the road. Tom is probably sad because he thought he was going to accidentally get some weeks off once in a while, but no.
I was so excited.
Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen. You will forever push this boulder uphill, my friend. Welcome to your nightmare. But for all of you out there who are watching, we certainly appreciate it. As always, we thank you very much, and we'll see you next Wednesday.